Chapter 615. Hua Sungzan could not help but look at Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan lowered his head and rubbed his nose. He sighed and sighed. So she's secretly in love. How troublesome. However, he could not help but curl his lips into a mysterious smile. Of course, he knew that Begonia had been forced into a dead end, turning to any doctor in a desperate situation. However, there was no harm in secretly feeling pleased about it. Do you think I've grown up scared? Yifeng recovered his composure very soon. Surely he could not flee in defeat after hearing a single name. If that happened, there would be no need for North Moon to do anything. Yidan would be able to slaughter him. Thinking about it, even if Begonia was telling the truth, distant water could not put out a nearby fire. As long as he handed her over to Yidan, what happened next would no longer be under his control. Begonia used this opportunity to break free from Granny Yu's chicken claws and took out a jade pendant, raising it high into the air. As long as I crush this jade pendant, he'll rush over and save me in a moment. It was a regular suet jade pendant, but in that moment, it was like a magnet, firmly drawing over everyone's gazes. Yifeng shivered inside. The jade pendant flickered with light. It was indeed a communication pendant, but he had no idea whether it was for North Moon or not. All he could do was carefully study Begonia's expression. However, women were born with natural abilities when it came to acting, and Begonia was one of the best among them. Having practiced the arts of charm for several decades, her expression and bearing were flawless. Yifeng could not help but become rather hesitant, seeing how she had managed to stun the evil wind with this move. Qiu Haitang eased up slightly inside. She had to find a way to escape as soon as possible. She could no longer stay in the Rui commandery, but how to escape was a problem. Yifeng and the others were like a few ravenous wolves. How could they allow their prey to escape? Begonia said to Li Qingshan through soul sense, "If I may be so bold as to make a final request, feel free to tell me. I'll find a way to escape later. If the situation becomes disadvantageous, please block it for me. If it doesn't work, I'll cut my throat on the spot. I'll never be humiliated. If I can escape alive, I will definitely fulfill your wish in the future. Don't worry, I won't let Qiongji know." Begonia was also a little disheartened at this moment. She felt that although Li Qingshan was not the one she loved in her heart, he was still a good person. At the very least, he was millions of times stronger than Yidan. For him to risk his life to save her time, and again, other than this body, there was nothing else he could repay. Since you are in love with someone else, why would I take advantage of your perilous situation? I just need to drag it out until the North Moon arrives, Li Qingshan said resolutely, but in his heart he thought, just pick one of these two. I don't mind. Begonia couldn't help but smile bitterly in her heart. Do you really believe that I have any connection with the North Moon? Apart from that brief encounter a few years ago, they had only seen each other from afar. Yifeng's body suddenly trembled. With a face full of disbelief, he pointed at Li Qingshan behind Begonia and exclaimed, "North Moon!" Everyone's gaze followed the direction that Yifeng was pointing at and looked towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan shuddered. How did this guy see through my identity? Begonia's mind was slightly distracted. A strong gust of wind came, and the evil wind went straight for the jade pendant in her hand. Begonia hesitated. If she really crushed the jade pendant, wouldn't her lie be exposed? With this hesitation, the jade pendant fell into Yifeng's hands. Everyone knew that Yifeng was deliberately deceiving Begonia. She secretly scolded him for being shameless, but her heart that had been raised to her throat also returned to her stomach. Apart from Hua Sungzan, no one knew that Yifeng had pointed casually. He was actually able to see through the heavenly secrets. Yifeng tossed the jade pendant in his hand and said smugly, "It turns out that I was wrong. However, beasts and evildoers are the same kind. Do you really think that I will believe that this thing can summon North Moon? Do you think that I have not investigated you before? You'd better go back with us obediently, even if North Moon comes. Facing my master, you can only flee in defeat. Although he looked like a hooligan, he was actually very meticulous and cautious. But in reality, he was meticulous and cautious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have survived until now. Begonia sneered and said, "Crush it if you have the guts." "Do you think I don't dare?" "I think you just don't dare." "Humph, do you think I'm a fool?" "Cut the crap and come here." Yifeng suddenly launched an attack. He waved a large silver net and covered Begonia's head. With Begonia's cultivation, facing Yifeng was like a chi practitioner facing a foundation establishment cultivator. There was no room for resistance at all. She could only use enchantment to confuse Yifeng's mind. Yifeng's gaze wavered slightly. He found the woman before him to be delicate and pitiful. He actually could not bring himself to lay his hands on her. However, his willpower was far greater than regular foundation establishment cultivators. He bit the tip of his tongue and immediately returned to his senses. A water spout whistled over. Li Qingshan had finally taken action. Yifeng looked down on him. Two cultivators in black leapt out from behind him and struck the water spout viciously. Although their cultivations were not as great as Yifeng's, they were still foundation establishment cultivators. However, they shuddered the moment they touched the water spout. They felt an irrepressible, tremendous power, and it was endless, stacking on top of one another. They could not help but stagger backwards, creating a deep pit with each step. In the blink of an eye, they had retreated to Yifeng. They were all shocked. They did not feel anything when he clashed with the fire devourer, but they never thought he could actually unleash the violent side of gentle water to such a degree. Seeing how their companions could not hold on anymore, two more cultivators in black took action, pressing their hands against their backs again. Their teamwork was flawless. They faced Li Qingshan alone, with the strength of the four of them. Li Qingshan suddenly remembered how Ru Xin had destroyed his water spout. He raised his arms, and the water spout spun rapidly. However, he used the exact opposite method, making it explode with its greatest power. Boom! The four cultivators in black staggered backwards. Li Qingshan cut right to the chase, throwing a punch at Yifeng. He still managed to gain the upper hand despite fighting five alone. This was no longer just because of his strength and abilities, but also because of his invincible, fierce bearing. Everyone could not help but cheer. The Hawkwolf guards cheered the loudest. "You little bastard!" Yifeng cursed furiously as he drew his blade to receive him. Li Qingshan's bearing suddenly withdrew, and all of the light gathered towards his right hand, turning into an extremely resplendent droplet of water. With a flick of his finger, the droplet of water shot over, piercing through Yifeng's protective light, and landing on the jade tablet with great precision. The jade tablet immediately shattered. Ocean wielding the water drop stance, he condensed the boundless power of the ocean into a droplet of water, unleashing startling power. Li Qingshan had studied this move a long time ago, but he had always been unable to grasp its main points. Today, he had a flash of inspiration and improvised it on the spot. Originally, there should have been an 80 to 90% chance of failure, but he just happened to succeed. Li Qingshan laughed. "Since you're afraid, I'll help you out." Yifeng was alarmed, becoming even more infuriated. The blade in his hand pulsed with a blade aura that was several meters long as he swung it towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan swung his hands about wildly, and the space before him immediately became filled with streaks of blue light that flowed like turbulence. With each streak, The blade aura would be drawn over. Yifeng even felt like he was losing control of the blade in his hand. In the end, he swung it towards the ground beside Li Qingshan, creating a crack that was over 30 meters long. If it were not for the fact that the Parlor of Clouds and Rain had been constructed from special materials by the craftsmen of Moism, it definitely would have been split in half. Ocean wielding, the horizontal flow stance. The ocean flowed, and the waves surged. The more vicious and powerful the enemy's attacks were, the more difficult it would be for him to control it. Trapped in the turbulence, he could not help but lose sight of his original target. By the time the four cultivators in black arrived together, Li Qingshan had already pulled back. As he advanced and retreated, he did not hesitate at all. He easily shattered Yifeng's jade pendant, leading to another round of cheers. Yifeng raised his hand and stopped his junior brothers. This little bastard's techniques were startling, and he possessed the identity of a Scarlet Hawk commander. They could not kill him here today, nor could they right now. The matter at hand was whether the North Moon would come or not now that the jade pendant had shattered. This was also the question on everyone's minds. Li Qingshan smiled at Begonia, which made Begonia smile bitterly inside. Why don't you just come up with a way to take me out? However, she did not dare to show it on her face. Instead, she sneered. Just you wait. Yifeng laughed madly. Do you really think I'll be afraid of a mere wretched demon? You've used him time and time again to scare me. However, he could not help but seem a little cowardly on the inside. If you're not afraid, then just wait here with me for a while. Having reached this point, all Begonia could do was endure it with no other choice. She obviously knew that even if she waited another decade or so, the North Moon would not come. I have matters to attend to. How can I waste my time here with you? Yifeng made his way towards Begonia. There was a flash before him, and Li Qingshan's large body stood in front of Begonia to protect her. Yifeng knew that it was impossible for him to take down Li Qingshan so quickly. He said to Granny Yu, "Sect Master Yu, this is an internal matter of your sect of Clouds and Rain. How can you allow an outsider to interfere?" "Haikang, stop being so stubborn," Granny Yu said sternly. Just when she was about to strike, Li Qingshan stood with his arms crossed and said indifferently, "When the North Moon comes later and asks what happened here, I don't mind telling him." Granny Yu immediately cowered. Yifeng said, "You're a mighty Scarlet Hawk commander, yet you're actually colluding with a wretched demon. If this woman is lying, then so be it, but if she's telling the truth, then you're an accomplice protecting the wretched demon." Li Qingshan sneered. "Go sue me if you can." Yifeng ground his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. The status of a Hawkwolf Guard was special. In the Rui Commandery, no one had the right to judge him apart from Gu Yenying. However, everyone knew that this Commander Gu was colluding with the wretched demon more than any other cultivator in the Rui Commandery. "You really are a stupid animal. You've been led around by a woman's lies. I'll be waiting right here, waiting for the North Moon to come." Yifeng made up his mind and cast aside all of his worries. He was certain that this was Begonia's stalling tactic. He refused to believe that the North Moon would actually come. Time passed slowly. A crescent moon hung silently in the sky. The rooftop was frighteningly quiet. Some people's foreheads became covered in sweat. They wanted to leave early, but they were afraid of being mocked. Let alone the others. Even the mighty prefect, Lu Chongqing, felt uneasy. Even if the North Moon came, he should not slaughter the innocent. The night breeze drifted through the prefectural city of Clear River. There was a hubbub of voices, and lantern light shone resplendently, surging in all directions. The rooftop was like a dark, isolated island that floated on the ocean, trembling gently as it waited for the arrival of an unpredictable tsunami. Chapter 6:16. In the beginning, Begonia felt extremely nervous, but as she gazed at the lights in the distance, her mind gradually settled down. Who knew how many times she had seen this sight since she was young, but this was the second time. She found it so beautiful. She remembered the first time. She was still a little girl in simple clothes, lying on the edge of the rooftop. Her face was filled with amazement, and her eyes shone. She refused to believe that such a bustling and beautiful sight existed in the world. Today was probably the day they parted forever. In that moment, the memories of the past flooded her head before drifting away with the night wind. The little girl rapidly grew up like a willow twig. Until now, she smiled faintly, letting go of life and death. Instead, she remained calm, standing among everyone like a goddess, cold and inviolable. Yifeng's vicious smile gradually became more pronounced. In the end, he could not help but laugh aloud. His wild laughter was like the howl of a jackal. He spread his arms and spun around. "Ha! Tell me, where's that wretched demon? Didn't you say he'd come to save you a moment later? Why haven't I seen a single trace of him after so long?" Then he arrived before Begonia. "Don't tell me you're lying to us. Come on, just admit it. Oi, you little bastard. How does it feel to be tricked by a woman?" Everyone eased up as well. They all discussed, why would North Moon come? She's just putting up a front at the end of the day. Whatever, the matters of the sect of clouds and rain have nothing to do with us. She's embarrassed Commanderly, though. Granny Yu was even more displeased. Children sure know how to make trouble. Commander Lee, this is a matter of our sect of clouds and rain, so please move aside. Li Qingshan suddenly pointed behind Yifeng and called out, "North Moon!" Yifeng was taken aback. He squinted his eyes. "Do you think I'm a child? And you're still trying to use something like that?" Suddenly, he discovered that the terrace had become extremely quiet. Everyone's gazes followed the direction Li Qingshan was pointing in. Afterwards, they all froze there as if they had been struck by a freezing curse. Their expressions twisted and changed, becoming panic, fear, trembling. Granny Yu was like an old hen that had been startled. She shrank back and seemed even shorter. Yifeng slowly turned around. Under the crescent moon, a peerlessly handsome man with scarlet hair and eyes stood. Standing at the edge of the rooftop, the moonlight seemed to be dyed red. Behind him was a resplendent sea of lanterns. His long hair and clothes fluttered in the night wind. Silently, the tsunami arrived. The North Moon had arrived. Yifeng felt all the blood in his body churning. His heart turned cold in an instant. His mouth was wide open, but no sound came out. "Hey, woman, why did you call me?" North Moon scanned the rooftop with his scarlet eyes. Finally, his gaze fell on Begonia. When the cultivators met that pair of red eyes, they could not help but shrink back. With a whoosh, they retreated a large circle. It was as though North Moon's eyes contained some invisible witchcraft. North Moon. Begonia took a step forward. She didn't know how to answer. She had already made up her mind to die, but the savior that she had spouted nonsense suddenly fell from the sky, causing her to be in a daze. She even suspected that there was something wrong with her memories from several years ago. In the eyes of others, it was naturally a woman who had seen the lover of her dreams. She was so excited that she could not control herself. The cultivators in black all looked horrified. Yifeng's back was dripping with cold sweat. He forced himself to calm down. This battle had to be won by wits, not by force. He had to restrain Begonia as soon as possible so that the evildoer would hesitate to attack. He glanced around. The heavens were really helping him. Li Qingshan had stepped aside at some point. Qiu Haitang stood there alone, as delicate as a crabapple flower. He hurriedly sent a mental message to his companions. Just one move. He could restrain her. Just as he was accumulating power, a hot wind brushed past his face. Yifeng's eyes widened. He felt as though time had stopped around him. Only one person was not affected. North Moon swept past him like he was taking a stroll in the park and came to Begonia's side. I can't win. I definitely can't win. I can't even escape. Yifeng groaned in his heart. North Moon naturally wrapped his arm around Begonia's exceptionally slender waist. Why aren't you saying anything? He glanced at the pile of gold, silver, and jewelry. What's going on with these things? Begonia's delicate body stiffened. Her cherry lips parted slightly as she looked at North Moon. The memories from a few years ago became incomparably vivid. It was as though he had directly jumped out of her memory. However, she could not read anything from those crimson eyes. However, at this point, she had to act even if she did not want to. She simply leaned on him and said in a coquettish tone, "These people want to force me to marry Edan. These gold and silver are all my betrothal gifts." She rambled on about the cause and effect of the matter, especially describing the scene of Yifeng scolding North Moon as a demon. She said things like, "I'm not afraid of that demon, even if he comes, and I have to flee at the sight of my master in a vivid manner." Although she did not lie, she inevitably added details to make Yifeng and the others seem even more detestable. With every sentence that Begonia said, Yifeng and the others trembled all over. Every sentence was simply heart-wrenching. Begonia's eyes flashed with the joy of revenge. No matter what North Moon had come for, after hearing these words, these people would not be able to escape death. North Moon listened silently and could not help but laugh. "Oh, this is very interesting." Half jokingly, he reached out and caressed Begonia's plump cheeks. He said gently, "I've made you suffer. This is all a misunderstanding. We have no intention of becoming enemies with you. Our master is Great General Edan, and we have long admired you. We never thought fellow Chio would actually have a partner, so we thought she was just bluffing. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us, fellow Chio." Yifeng changed from his brash demeanor just now and actually behaved politely. He referred to North Moon as Sir before clasping his hands deeply towards Begonia in the end. He actually seemed extremely sincere, without the slightest hint of a scoundrel who spoke without restraint. Yeah, it's all a misunderstanding. I was just about to pass on the position of sect master to Haitang and return to the depths of the mountains to cultivate in seclusion. Grandma Yu rubbed her hands together and smiled. Chiu Haitang hadn't forgotten to bring her along when she was narrating the story. Grandma Yu didn't dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. She smiled like a blooming flower. And when she looked at Chiu Haitang, she even had a pitiful expression on her face as she silently used her bewitchment art. Begonia could not help but wonder, Granny Yu is already so old. Just how many more years can she live for? She's still my senior after all. It's all for the good of the sect of clouds and rain. Smack! There was a resounding slap. North Moon casually slapped Granny Yu across the face. Under the tremors of the ox demon, her protective layer of spiritual energy immediately shattered. Her head turned to one side, and her old face was thrown into the air. Over a dozen teeth flew out of her mouth. "Your smile is so hideous. Keep it to yourself." North Moon said impatiently. Granny Yu was surprised, furious, and fearful. She clutched her swollen face and became even more afraid of striking back, nor did she dare to smile anymore. She murmured, Yes. Smack! There was another resounding slap. North Moon gave Granny Yu another backhand slap and waved his hand. "Forget it. You better just keep smiling. It'll only be uglier if you don't smile." Granny Yu became dizzy from the slap. Not a single tooth remained in her mouth. She stood there awkwardly, She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Begonia returned to her senses as well. She knew she had fallen for the arts of charm again. Originally, she was very annoyed, but when she saw Granny U's disheveled state, she could not help but burst out laughing. When she thought about how Granny U had swaggered around and forced her time and time again, she felt great pleasure. Smack! There was another slap. Even a person made of clay had a temper. Granny U was a mighty golden core cultivator after all. She said in surprise and fury, If you like it, I'll slap you again. North Moon completely ignored Granny U and said to Begonia gently, he could not copy King U of Zhou and toy with his vassals, but casually slapping them a few times was still very easy. There's no need. Begonia lowered her head and said softly. Her cheeks were slightly red. She knew that he was standing up for her. She could not tell if she was touched or something else, but she felt a little dizzy. Just a moment ago, she was being forced by Granny U, humiliated by Yifeng, and treated coldly by everyone. Only Li Qingshan was willing to help her. As she thought of this, she could not help but look back. She saw Li Qingshan retreating far away, smiling and nodding at her. When she looked back again, everyone looked at her with eyes full of panic. They were afraid that if she pointed a finger at them, even if they were lucky enough to survive a few slaps, they would lose all face. Especially Yifeng and the others. Their faces were ashen, and they were panicking like stray dogs. She then saw Hua Sengzan's extremely complicated expression. She smiled brightly, no longer worrying about him, and found that she was actually a little proud. Humph, go think about your Guyanning. It's not like I don't have anyone who wants me. Begonia bit her lip and pulled on North Moon's collar. She pointed at Yifeng and the others. And them. Yifeng and the others cursed her in their hearts for being a bitch, but they smiled dryly. If you won't let us go, our master Yi Dan and Prince Si Qing will not let you go. Why do you have to go so far for a misunderstanding? North Moon waved his hand. Since it's a misunderstanding, why don't you get lost? When Yifeng and the others heard this, they were overjoyed, as if they had been pardoned. They thought, humph, as expected, he still has some reservations. This evildoer will die a horrible death in the future. They wanted to say a few tough words, but they did not dare to. They cupped their hands and turned to leave. Begonia was a little unwilling, but she did not forget that they were acting now. If they did not agree with each other and made him unhappy, it would not be worth it. Wait. Yifeng and the others had already arrived at the edge of the rooftop. If they took a few more steps forward, they would be returning to the sea, and they would be entering the mountains. However, North Moon's wretched voice rang out from behind. He gulped and turned around. Sir, do you have any other orders? You forgot to bring betrothal gifts. North Moon glanced at the gold, silver, and jewelry. Yifeng and the others relaxed and walked back. They were about to put the small mountain of gold, silver, and jewelry into their 100 treasures pouches when they heard North Moon say, Wait, you're going to bring them just like that. How do you want us to bring them? North Moon raised his chin at the pile of gold, silver, and jewelry. Eat them. What? Yifeng was shocked and angry. How could these gold, silver, and jewelry be eaten? North Moon smiled and said, You have to take back what you said. You have to eat the things you brought. You can't eat one less silver. P.S. Wow, the Dragon God is so smart. Congratulations, Dragon God Messenger. Humph, Tao Wu, tipping 3 Alliance Masters and being promoted to the Great Alliance Master has made all my wishes come true. All right, I have to do something. You know, I'm not cut out for this. But from tomorrow onwards, I'll be back to my daily update schedule of 8 in the morning and 6 in the evening. Chapter 6:17. An enchanting smile immediately appeared on Begonia's face. She agreed. That's a good idea. Feng's face twisted, and veins popped up on his forehead. North Moon, don't go too far. Go too far? Are you talking about me? North Moon asked Begonia beside him. Do you think I'm bullying them? Of course not. Then I'll bully them a little more seriously. Eat it. North Moon grabbed a golden ingot and tossed it casually. Although the mirror clone only possessed a fraction of his strength, the strength of the ox demon was still terrifying even if it was reduced slightly. The moment the golden ingot was tossed out, it twisted and turned into a streak of golden light. It pierced the protective arcane artifact of a cultivator in black before piercing his body. The cultivator in black lowered his head and glanced at the hole in his chest in disbelief. He let out a high-pitched shriek. Rather than pain, it was more accurate to describe it as fear. He was not afraid of dying in battle, but the feeling of being casually crushed sapped all of his courage. Only after the golden ingot flew into the distance did a sharp whistle reach his ears. Fierce winds blew on the rooftop, and the expressions of all the cultivators changed. In North Moon's hands, a mere golden ingot was a terrifying killing weapon. He could kill Foundation establishment cultivators like slaughtering chickens or dogs. Let's fight it out with him. Yifeng roared, but he did not sound confident at all. Looks like you won't eat obediently, so I'll have to help you out. A pair of magnificent, fiery wings suddenly unfurled behind North Moon. In the eyes of the surrounding spectators, he split into 5 in that instant, appearing beside the 5 of them at the same time. He only attacked each of them once, either with a casual slap or a gentle tap. The 5 cultivators in black, who had just leapt up and were about to fight to the death, all collapsed on the ground. However, they were not injured at all. Only their spiritual chi and bodies had been suppressed by the spirit turtle's power. They all widened their eyes and were immobilized. Their arcane artifacts and 100 treasures pouches had all been taken away by Li Qingshan. Yifeng collapsed on the ground. We've fallen into your hands today. It's us brothers who are unlucky. If you want to kill us, feel free to do so. North Moon praised. Good. I admire a man like you, and I won't kill you. I won't cut you. I just want you to eat it. The fiery wings on his back flapped, and the pile of gold, silver, and jewels melted into water and floated in the air. It kept changing. North Moon moved his fingers, and 5 streams of scorching gold and silver water surged toward Yifeng and the other 4. They gritted their teeth and closed their mouths. However, his lips and teeth were instantly melted, and a wave of boiling heat went straight into his lungs. This pile of gold, silver, and jewelry that they had used to humiliate Begonia had instead become a talisman that hastened their deaths. Although their bodies were strong and their vitality was strong, they couldn't use spiritual energy. So how could they resist the scorching gold and silver water? Their strong bodies only prolonged the pain. With a sizzling sound, white smoke rose, and after a while, a burnt smell could be smelled. The gold and silver water burned through the lungs. It flowed through their bodies. Li Qingshan blew again, and the gold and silver water immediately cooled and solidified, turning them into 5 gold and silver people. None of the cultivators present dared to breathe loudly after witnessing the cruelty of the fiendish demons. However, many were cheering in their hearts. You guys are so arrogant and look down on us. You deserve to die a horrible death. North Moon turned to Begonia and said, Have you calmed down? Actually, he was trying to calm his anger. A bunch of bastards, little bastards, and so on and so forth. Now, you know how important it is to keep your mouth shut. I'll kill you little dogs, and then I'll go kill that old doggy Dan. Begonia was very touched. It's gone. Should I kill this one? North Moon pointed at her, and Granny Yu leapt up like she had been scalded. She called out, "Spare me, Sir North Moon! Lord North Moon, spare me!" Begonia finally could not bear to do it. She did not know if the effects of the charm technique were still lingering, but she bit her lip and shook her head lightly. Just let her go. Grandma Yu was overjoyed. North Moon appeared in front of her in a flash, grabbing her by the throat. With a light squeeze, an old head flew into the air as she screamed, "I'll take you down with me." She wanted to detonate the golden core, but North Moon's other hand had already reached into her abdomen and dug out the golden core. Then he took her 100 treasures pouch and shoved her corpse into the 100 treasures pouch along the way. He had saved up a little so that he could give Xiao and as a gift in the future. As for Yifeng and the others, he would just treat them as performance art and leave them to Edan as a reference. He then reprimanded Begonia. "You really have long hair, but short eyes. If you let her go, do you think she'll let you go?" Begonia felt wronged. "Then why are you asking me?" "I'm just asking. Let's go." North Moon extended his hand towards her. "Go." A sliver of confusion appeared on Begonia's face. "Don't tell me you want to stay here?" North Moon tilted his head. I'll go with you," Begonia called out, going up and grabbing his hand. North Moon took advantage of the situation to wrap his arm around her waist and take off into the air. She looked back, only to see the rooftop rapidly grow further and further away. Everyone's faces blurred very quickly. All she saw was Li Qingshan waving at her from afar. The resplendent sea of lanterns of the Clear River Prefecture gradually grew further away too, all the way until they reached the sky. The wind whistled past her ears. She turned around and looked at the side of his face. "Where are you taking me?" Her voice was so gentle that even she was surprised. "You'll know once we get there. What are you going to do to me?" "What do you want me to do to you?" North Moon could not help but smile. Begonia found the smile to be rather familiar, but it was concealed by the inherent malevolence of demons, so she was unable to guess his true identity no matter how hard she tried. Li Qingshan was forthright, while North Moon did whatever he wanted and did whatever he wanted. Begonia felt her heart pound heavily. She was afraid to make eye contact with him. "I want to return to the dwelling and pack my things." "How troublesome. Where's the dwelling?" The two of them suddenly turned around and flew off in the southwest direction. After North Moon left, everyone on the rooftop could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Their bodies relaxed. Although North Moon had never targeted them the entire time, his vicious and heavy presence weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. Everyone discussed what had happened just now. Hua Sengzan said to Li Qingshan secretly, "I hope you can treat her well." Li Qingshan's attention was completely focused on his mirror clone. He was currently enjoying Begonia's soft, delicate body. When he heard that, he smiled without saying anything. He called out, "Bring the alcohol." Granny Yu had been killed, and Begonia had left. The disciples of the sect of clouds and rain were all unsettled. They dared not disobey Li Qingshan's orders, so they cleaned up the rooftop and brought up fine alcohol and delicacies. However, none of them dared to approach the gold and silver figures. Li Qingshan raised his cup high into the air. Everyone, the performance just now has been extremely fascinating. Let's keep drinking. After experiencing what had happened just now, most of them were no longer in the mood to drink. However, when they heard what Li Qingshan said, all they could do was raise their cups, or they would seem like they had been frightened out of their wits by North Moon. They thought, this Commander Li Shur is open-minded. In the commandery city of Rui, Dan's heart leapt. Something has happened to Yifeng and the others. He immediately rushed over to the parlor of clouds and rain in the Clear River Prefecture. The banquet continued on the rooftop, except everyone seemed rather forced as they drank and laughed. Only Li Qingshan truly became more and more excited as he drank. He seemed like he was drinking alone, but the person beside him had not actually left. Instead, they grew closer. Dan descended from above, wiping away everyone's last bit of interest in drinking. His gaze first stared viciously at Li Qingshan before landing on the 5 gold and silver figures. What's going on? Who did this? There was silence. No one was bold enough to answer him. Li Qingshan stood up with a jar of alcohol and said drunkenly, "Those disciples of yours came to help you find a wife. Those disciples of yours came to help you find a wife." Unfortunately, fellow Taoist Qiu's heart already belonged to someone else. Those disciples of yours were too pressuring him, so he came to you and started a little killing. That's the result. Who was it? Tell me clearly. I'll definitely tear him to pieces. Dan's face was scarlet red, like a volcano that could erupt at any time. These disciples were all the most capable of him. It had not been easy to raise them either. Originally, he thought carrying out a mission like this would be a piece of cake, but he never thought they would fall prey to someone. He did not believe that Li Qingshan was capable of such a thing. Logically speaking, if Yifeng and the others worked together, they would not be completely helpless even against a golden core cultivator. The terrifying aura that Dan gave off was even stronger than North Moon's just now. He was like a ferocious beast in human form that was currently in a state of rage. All the cultivators broke out in cold sweat for Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan was unmoved. He burped and spat out 2 words. North Moon. He's probably at Moon Court Lake. If you want to take revenge, you'll probably be able to make it in time if you hurry up. Lu Chongqing could not help but sigh inwardly. How could this be possible without heroic courage? Although Dan was very conceited about his own strength, he did not have absolute confidence in defeating that North Moon. He could only dispel his thoughts of immediately seeking revenge, leaving behind the 5 gold and silver figures that seemed to be mocking him. Furious, he waved his hand, and the 5 gold and silver figures were reduced to dust. Li Qingshan chuckled and tried to persuade him. "Please calm down, fellow." Dan was tempted to personally kill this gloating little bastard right now, but when he remembered Si Qing's instructions, he held back his killing intent. "I'll let you be complacent for a few more days, you little bastard." Dan left in a huff, and Li Qingshan lifted up the jar of alcohol and drank it all. How satisfying! Today's banquet has been extremely enjoyable. I, Li Qingshan, am extremely grateful for everyone's support. Let's disperse today, and we'll get drunk together in the future. The cultivators had wanted to leave a long time ago. When they heard that, they were more than happy to hear it. They all stood up and bid farewell. Li Qingshan returned to the 100 schools of thought with everyone else, just in case Dan schemed against him. Lu Chongqing stayed behind, but He obviously did not do it for the sake of sleeping around. The sect of clouds and rain could be regarded as one of the sects with a very deep foundation in the Clear River Prefecture, and they had not suffered too great of a loss in the war, preserving most of their strength. Now that Granny Yu and Begonia were dead, and one was gone, it was a great opportunity for him to devour this force. As a group of leaderless Qi practitioners, they obviously could not put up any resistance, but Lu Chongqing was afraid to go too far either, as he was rather worried about what would happen if Begonia returned as the sect master one day. Elsewhere, Li Qingshan returned to the 100 Schools of Thought, and immediately said he wanted to meditate and cultivate, as he wanted to concentrate on his clone. He closed his eyes before opening them again, and what he saw was Begonia's slender figure as she tidied up her things. Chapter 6:18. Li Qingshan had visited Ru Xian's cave many times. The decorations there were relatively simple, and there were almost no useless decorations. There were still traces of stone carvings on the walls, and the tables and chairs were all made directly from stone. There was only one reason for their existence, and that was to make cultivation convenient. As a woman, Begonia's cave was of a completely different style. Even though she also lived in a cave in the mountains, the stone walls were polished to the point that they could reflect one's reflection. Everywhere was decorated with complex and beautiful patterns, and the faint fragrance of flowers wafted through the air. The ground was covered with a thick carpet, and large and exquisite pieces of solid wood furniture were scattered throughout the large and small rooms of the cave. Li Qingshan ignored Begonia's gaze. As if he was in his own home, he wandered around and casually opened a few. He discovered that most of them were wardrobes, and they were divided into different categories. Some were specially for cloaks, and some were specially for skirts. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, He would not have believed that a woman could have so many types of clothes, and that she had over 100 pieces of each type. Li Qingshan arrived in front of another wardrobe. Right when he was about to open it, Qiu Haitang rushed over and leaned against the wardrobe. "I've already poured you some tea. Can't you just sit there obediently for a while? What's the taste of tea? If you want a drink, drink wine." Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Because of Yi Feng and Yi Dan, the banquet had to be interrupted twice and ended prematurely in the end. However, he had not drunk to his heart's content yet. Rather, it could be said that he had become even more excited. If there was anything more enjoyable than watching an arrogant enemy lose his composure and anger, it would definitely be to kill the enemy with his own hands. Tonight, he had experienced both of them. "All right, I'll get you some wine." Begonia could not do anything to this powerful demon in front of her. She could only lower her head and rummage through her 100 treasures pouch. She found a jar of spiritual wine and handed it to him. Li Qingshan opened the mud seal and gulped down a few mouthfuls. "This should be fine, right? Hurry and sit down. I still have to tidy up." Begonia felt her waist tighten, and she could not help but fall into his arms. Her proud breasts were pressed tightly against his chest. Even though they were separated by a few layers of muslin, it was difficult to hide the wonderful feeling of softness and elasticity. Li Qingshan waved his finger, and the wardrobe opened. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Inside the wardrobe were pieces of underwear. No wonder Begonia was so nervous. "Let me go." Begonia's face was red as she struggled with all her might. But how could he break free? Li Qingshan's milky breasts pressed against him, making him enjoy it even more. He casually took out a light pink undergarment from the wardrobe. The small undergarment was embroidered extremely beautifully, and it was as light as silk. He couldn't help but imagine what it would look like on Begonia. What kind of dress would she be wearing now? Li Qingshan lowered his head and looked down. He could see a deep, snow-white ravine. "Don't touch my things." Begonia's face turned even redder, and she struggled even more. Her eyes were shy and flustered, and there was no trace of the calm Clan Master Qiu had in the past. Instead, it was more alluring than any kind of charm. Li Qingshan's lower abdomen became hot. He lowered his head and said, "If you move, I don't know what I'll do." You. Begonia also felt the change in a certain part of his body and immediately did not dare to move. She had a feeling that she had just left a wolf's den and entered a tiger's mouth. This ferocious tiger could easily tear a group of wolves to shreds, but the situation of a lamb like her did not change at all. The only difference was that she had entered the tiger's mouth of her own accord. Li Qingshan wrinkled his nose and caught a whiff of a heavy fragrance. It was like the fragrance of a flower, but it was a little different. Actually, at the banquet just now, when she was drinking with him, he smelled the fragrance on her body. At first, he thought it was the fragrance of cosmetics, but upon closer inspection, she seemed to have no makeup on. And with his keen sense of smell, the fragrance was not some kind of perfume, but came from her body. He buried his head in the pit of her neck, and the fragrance filled his mouth and nose. He could not help but take a deep breath, and he felt that his lungs were filled with fragrance. The tip of his nose and his lips touched the skin of her neck, and it was as thin as sheep fat. Like a fierce tiger sniffing the petals of a begonia, he did not even dare to sniff too hard, for fear of damaging the soft petals. Suddenly, he felt her body tremble slightly. Li Qingshan raised his head and saw that her eyes were tightly closed and her long eyelashes were trembling like small fans. He could not help but smile and said, "I won't eat you. What are you afraid of?" Begonia opened her eyes and said, "I'm not afraid." Li Qingshan smiled and brought the wine jar to her lips. Begonia stubbornly turned her head away, and her big eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She thought that he would continue to use force, but she did not expect that he would let go of her, and said with a smile, "You're already so old, yet you're still crying like a little girl. I originally thought that you were a good monster, but I did not expect you to be so detestable. You're practically no different from that Edan." Begonia covered her neck with one hand, and her face was red. She thought of the first time they met. At that time, she was also on the brink of despair, and he had descended from the sky to save her. He was not stingy with his words to ease her emotions, but it was nothing like this. "At least it's better than Edan. Hurry up and pack your things," Li Qingshan said with a smile. He casually stuffed the undergarments into his bosom and carried the wine jar and continued to wander around. The building of this cave was extremely large. He walked up the stairs, passed through the moon gate, and arrived in front of the door of a room at the very top. He pushed open the door, and a silver moonlight filled the entire room. When he raised his head, he could see the stars and moon in the sky. At the top was a large piece of transparent crystal that had been specially refined, so that the sky could be seen, and the situation inside could not be seen from the outside. There was a soft couch in the middle of the room. It was probably a place for both resting and cultivation. Li Qingshan rested his head on his arms and crossed his legs, lying on the soft couch. As he drank, he gazed at the sky, and his thoughts drifted far away. After a while, Begonia returned. "I'm done packing. Let's go." Her lips pouted slightly, and her expression was rather displeased. She thought to herself, "Other than him, no one can protect me. I have no choice but to follow him." However, she did not dare to admit that she had some faint anticipation in her heart. She did not know what she was anticipating either. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Li Qingshan gazed at the starry sky, lost in thought. "If we stay here any longer, Edan might catch up. He probably already knows that Yifeng and the others did not kill us." Begonia walked up to him. "That couldn't be better. Don't worry. With me here, no one can hurt you." Li Qingshan suddenly tossed aside the wine jar and pulled her into his arms. He flipped her over and pressed her under his body. He bent down and whispered into her ear, a strong desire burning in his body. "Although you saved me, and I have no choice but to follow you now if you want to humiliate me by force, I'd rather die." Begonia closed her eyes, looking like she was about to die a heroic death. Li Qingshan found this very interesting and pinched her chin. "Do you think you can die just because you want to? I said no one can hurt you, including yourself." "Do you mean what you say?" Begonia suddenly opened her eyes, reflecting the moonlight and shining brightly. "Of course. What about you? What about me? What if you hurt me?" Li Qingshan smiled. "How could I bear to? You're hurting my heart now." "How clever!" Li Qingshan broke into laughter. He pinched her nose and held back his desire. He flipped over and laid to one side, wrapping his arm around her shoulder and pulling her into his arms. "Does this count as hurting your heart?" Seeing how her words had worked, Begonia felt slightly complacent inside, but she also understood that if he really wanted to unleash his power, a few words would not be enough to stop him. All she could do was lean against his shoulder obediently and think to herself, "I'm only doing this out of convenience, just in case I anger him." The room was quiet. Li Qingshan gazed at the stars and thought of beyond the 9 heavens again. He wondered what it was like there. He thought of Brother Ox and Little N. He wondered how they were doing right now. In the end, the stars turned into Han Qiongji's furious face again. He thought, "Qiongji, oh Qiongji, you've allowed me to visit the parlor of clouds and rain anyway. I just found the sect master to accompany me." In the end, his thoughts returned to the present. Edan and Si Qin were both powerful enemies. He had to increase his cultivation as soon as possible. He would spend half a day at most dealing with the matter of the 100 schools of thought before going to find Ru Xian and practice the way of water. Begonia opened her eyes and stared at his face as he pondered. Gradually, she no longer resisted this posture. Instead, she felt slightly at ease. "Why have you come to the parlor of clouds and rain?" Begonia broke the silence and asked the question that weighed the most on her mind. "I just happened to run into you." Li Qingshan smiled. "How can it be so coincidental?" Begonia refused to believe it. "I knew the new Marquis of Rui was coming, so I've always been looking into it. I know you've been wronged in the Marquis estate, so I specially came to comfort you." Li Qingshan made it up without thinking, but he never expected Begonia to believe him so much. She was touched and pressed closer to him. "I didn't think you'd still remember me. I thought you'd forgotten about me a long time ago." Li Qingshan snickered inside and said tenderly, "Though it looks like you've already found someone else, so all I can do is watch over you silently in the darkness." "Find someone else? When?" Begonia widened her eyes like she had been wronged. When she heard how he said he had been watching over her in the darkness the entire time, she felt slightly sweet inside. "Aren't you very attentive to the man beside you?" Li Qingshan purposefully acted like he was jealous. "You're talking about Li Qingshan. Don't overthink it. He's my savior. He risked his life for me and offended Edan. So I felt bad about it. I set up a banquet to thank him. I didn't have any other thoughts. When I first met him, I really wanted to kill him, didn't I?" Then she told him about how she got to know Li Qingshan. She even did not hide how he had helped her kill Wei Zhongyuan. Begonia had no idea why she had to explain so seriously, but when she saw how displeased he was, she could not help but curl her lips slightly. She was no longer angry at his frivolous behavior just now. "In other words, I do have to properly thank him." Li Qingshan was originally joking, but when he heard that, he felt rather strange. He could tell that Begonia really did not have any other thoughts towards Li Qingshan. Instead, she felt some affection for him, the North Moon, who she had only met a few times. Logically speaking, saving her was a piece of cake for North Moon, but Li Qingshan had truly risked his life. Chapter 619. Li Qingshan could not help but sigh. The thoughts of women, sure, were unpredictable. Actually, this was normal. When Begonia first met Li Qingshan, not only did she oppose Li Qingshan, but he was only in his teens too. He seemed like a rough kid from the countryside. So why would she think like that? North Moon had appeared in her moment of pain and weakness. He was a handsome young man, and he even played the role of a friend of women. Afterwards, the two of them worked together to take down the Greenvine Mountain. It was filled with excitement and romance, leaving behind the deepest impression. Begonia grumbled. "What's it got to do with you? I should be the one thanking him. I've already promised him that I'll repay him with my body." "Then, do you want me to send you off to fulfill your promise?" Li Qingshan pulled her into his arms, and Begonia leaned against him. She turned her head away. "Whatever. I'm short on brains anyway, and I can't help myself." Li Qingshan found this funny. "Women sure were petty," he said with a stern face. "I think I'll just kill him." Begonia said in a hurry, "No, I'm indebted to him. It's not like it has anything to do with me. It's not like it has anything to do with you, all right? You can thank him however you want, but you can't hurt or kill him." Begonia was truly afraid that he would do that. He had been the one massacring the 2 times they had met. In the eyes of cultivators, the name North Moon had never been gentle or kind. Instead, it symbolized wanton slaughter, where he could do anything in a moment of anger. "No, then wouldn't I be losing out?" Li Qingshan lured her in. "What do you want?" Li Qingshan smiled. "You have to thank me properly first, and then I'll give him some benefits. Surely this can't be considered humiliating you and hurting your heart. It's clearly the case. You're using words to trick me, but at the end of the day, it's still for—" Begonia grumbled. She had experienced the craftiness of demons deeply. She had used words to shut him up earlier, yet he had turned around and tricked her. For what? The love between man and woman, the combination of yin and yang. It's only right and proper. That's what you said. "I didn't. Stubborn." Li Qingshan raised his head and kissed Begonia's lips. He found that not only were they not hard, but they were soft and tender. Begonia's eyes widened, and she was at a loss of what to do. Such a scene. Who knew how many times she had witnessed it in the parlor of clouds and rain? However, this was the first time he had experienced it personally. His entire body felt as if he had been electrocuted, and he felt waves of numbness. Li Qingshan took a sip and asked with a smile, "How do you feel?" Qiu Haitang was excited. It was hard for him to control himself. So how could he answer? Li Qingshan kissed her again, forcing open her teeth and entangling her tongue. Begonia was even more defeated. He laid limp on Li Qingshan's body and kissed her until he was aroused. He climbed up to her full breasts that seemed like they were about to burst out of her clothes. He laughed and said, "Let me see if your heart has ever been hurt." "No." Begonia grabbed his hand. Li Qingshan was already aroused and could not care less. However, when he saw the pleading look in her eyes, his heart could not help but soften. Bullying a weak girl for the sake of a momentary desire was not what a man should do. In any case, he had already taken enough advantage of her. So he picked up Begonia. "It looks like no one will come. Let's go." After leaving the cave abode, Li Qingshan did not head in the direction of Mooncourt Lake. Instead, he came to a quiet valley in a mountain range. There was a beautiful little lake there. When Li Qingshan first came here to refine the water vein, he felt that the scenery here was very good. The spiritual qi here was rather dense. Although it was not suitable for building a sect, it was extremely suitable for establishing a cave abode and cultivating alone. Li Qingshan had Begonia wait by the lakeside while he dove into the lake. A moment later, the The surface of the lake parted, revealing a path. Begonia walked into it and arrived at the bottom of the lake. A large space had been opened up at the bottom of the lake. The dome was borrowed from the large crystal in Begonia's original cave abode. When she looked up, she could see the rippling waves and the swimming fish and shrimp. Li Qingshan spread his arms and smiled. "How is it?" Begonia was secretly satisfied, but she said, "It's like being in prison. It's so suffocating. Being in prison is better than being someone's concubine. Isn't cultivation like this in the first place? Stop thinking nonsense and cultivate properly. Then your cultivation won't be so weak." "I'm not yet." "Not yet what?" Li Qingshan asked mischievously. It did feel like he was keeping a mistress in his house, but he probably did not have much time to visit this beauty. Moreover, this beauty was not willing to be visited by him. "Humph, it's nothing." Begonia snorted coldly and did her best to recover the appearance she had when she was sect Master Chiu. "Here, take it." Li Qingshan then passed Granny Yu's 100 treasures pouch and golden core to her. He glanced through the items in the 100 treasures pouch, but there was nothing that caught his eye. She was not even as wealthy as Yifeng and the other Foundation establishment cultivators. Granny Yu had only become a golden core cultivator after so many years, so she had basically used up all of her resources. After becoming a golden core cultivator, she had been killed off before she could even accumulate more. The golden core could not actually be regarded as a golden core. Instead, it was pink and possessed a hint of softness and charm. It was not a regular golden core, but a special golden core condensed from a special cultivation method, just like the ocean pearl condensed from the arts of the boundless ocean. Its element was far too different, so swallowing it would not bring much benefit. Begonia was rather surprised. According to her knowledge, the golden core condensed from the major method of clouds and rain of the sect of clouds, and rain did not look like this. If she refined it carelessly, it would only bring more harm than good. "Granny, you must have come across some other fortuitous encounter." She shook her head. "I don't want it." It was already rather strange right now. If she took this precious item from him as well, wouldn't she really be like a concubine? "Cut the bullshit. I told you to take it, so take it. If you talk back again, I'll spank you immediately." Li Qingshan glanced at her plump bottom that propped up her dress. It should be quite nice to the touch. He was rather eager for her to talk back. As the saying went, "Don't say I didn't warn you." Under the gaze of his scarlet eyes filled with lust, how could Begonia be bold enough to say anything else? She accepted the golden core and 100 treasures pouch, which left Li Qingshan rather disappointed. In the end, Li Qingshan gave her a jade pendant with a sliver of his soul sense embedded in it. This place is rather well hidden, and it's protected by formations, so there shouldn't be any danger. If there really is an emergency, crush it. Even if I can't rush over immediately, I can immediately mobilize the water and help you repel the enemy. I'm helping you all the way. Are you leaving? Qiu Haitang suddenly felt a little reluctant. If I stay any longer, I can't guarantee what I'll do. Li Qingshan waved his hand with a smile. He leapt up and charged out of the lake water without even looking back. He unfurled his wings and took off into the air. Begonia gazed at him for a while before lowering her head and sighing. She thought, "If you can stay here with me forever, so what if I let you do whatever you want?" As soon as she thought of this, even she leapt in fright. With further thought, even if she had no other choice, she would never allow a man to take advantage of her. Moreover, she did not feel any resentment or blame after that. All she could blame was him for leaving too decisively and too heartless. She did not want to think too much about it. She cast down the formations first before fixing up her new home at the bottom of the lake. She nodded in satisfaction. Although it was a little small, she no longer had to worry about the matters of the sect of clouds and rain, and no one would disturb her. Just like what he had said, it was a good place to cultivate in peace. Sigh, why am I thinking about him again? He might not even come back in the future. She could not help but sigh inside, but another voice immediately leapt out. He didn't succeed today, so he'll definitely come again. Humph, male demon. So what if he comes? With his nature of doing as he pleases, how could he possibly be restrained by a mere woman? You're a little too lacking in confidence in yourself. Didn't he specially come to see you? He's even jealous because of you. He's saved you from disaster twice. Fate has brought you together. The two voices continued to argue. Begonia lowered her head and looked at Granny Yu's 100 treasures pouch. What's this? A pink jade slip had appeared in her hand. Jade slips like this were mostly used to record cultivation methods. The last thing Li Qingshan lacked were cultivation methods, so he obviously did not care about it. Begonia recalled Granny Yu's wondrous golden core. She closed her eyes and focused, sending her soul sense into it. Quite a while later, she opened her eyes and sighed in amazement. As it turned out, this cultivation method was called the heart-dyeing art. It was even more profound and wondrous than the major method of clouds and rain. The foundation of the major method of clouds and rain was still dual cultivation. The arts of charm were only an extension of it. Both men and women could practice it. However, this heart-dyeing art could only be cultivated by women, and it possessed the ability to charm in itself. Rouge was originally a cosmetic that mortal women applied to their cheeks and lips to enhance their beauty. However, for a naturally beautiful woman like Begonia, even without any cosmetics, her lips would still be as red as vermilion, and her face would be as beautiful as a spring flower. Rouge was actually dispensable. As the name suggested, this heart-dyeing art was like applying rouge to one's heart, increasing a woman's charm from the very foundation. The deeper one cultivated, the greater the charm. Even without deliberately using enchantment, one could still fall head over heels. The golden core that was condensed was called the rouge heart. Without dual cultivation, Begonia's greatest problem was solved. She was unwilling to easily give up her body for another, so she had never had a dual cultivation partner. With this cultivation method, she would not have to worry about that. It's no wonder, Granny, you managed to undergo the tribulation in secluded cultivation despite her age. Turns out it's all because of this cultivation method. However, Granny Yu was just too old, so she could no longer unleash much of her charm. She also faced Li Qingshan, who practiced the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, so she still failed to escape death in the end. To Begonia's great surprise, there were also a few techniques with wondrous effects recorded in the heart-dyeing art. With a gentle brush of soft hands, the enemy's body would become limp and immobilized, while once rouge makeup was used, no matter if the enemy was male or female, no matter how vicious they would not be able to harm or harm you. Begonia believed that this was how she had fallen for it. She had never been a soft-hearted person. She had known Wei Zhongyuan for many years, yet she had still killed him as she pleased. Yet, when she was forced to such a degree by Granny Yu, who she was not familiar with, she could not help but speak up for her at a crucial moment. As for the technique that interested Begonia the most, it was called Yearning Stains the Red Thread. It used her virginity as a medium, and it could only be used once in a person's life. It could make a man fall in love with her for the rest of his life, infatuated with her, and never tired of yearning. Even tempered steel would become soft. Even if he was not a lover, he would become one. Chapter 620. Did little Hua fall victim to Gu Yanying's technique? Begonia shook her head and dismissed this absurd thought. Not only did this technique require a man to be infatuated with her for the rest of his life, but it also required a woman to be infatuated with him. If she stopped thinking about him, the red thread would fade, and she would have wasted her only opportunity for nothing. She sank into her thoughts again. She could only use this technique once in her life, so she had to be extremely cautious. She became slightly excited inside. They all say that people with the aspect of Peach Blossom will not be able to find love in the end and die of depression. I refuse to believe that. Master, oh Master, watch as I break this fate. If she had obtained this cultivation method a few years ago, she definitely would have used it on Hua Sungzan without the slightest hesitation. However, it took her quite a bit of thought now. After much thought, she finally decided not to think too much about it for now. She would practice this cultivation method first. Switching cultivation methods had always been difficult. The major method of clouds and rain was rather similar to the heart-dying method of rouge, and they both practiced profound yin spiritual qi. On top of that, she possessed a rouge heart. Humph, North Moon, if you're really bold enough to use force on me, don't even think about getting away scot-free. Begonia smiled proudly and immediately sat down with her legs crossed. She held the rouge heart and began practicing the heart-dying method of rouge. Gradually, a smear of red light spread out, dyeing her surroundings. It illuminated the pitch-black bottom of the lake. She no longer had to watch over the cauldron at all times. As Li Qingshan controlled his mirror place clone, to cultivate, he continued to refine the rivers and lakes of the Rui Commandery. Followed, although he had refined many large rivers and lakes in the past, of thought. He had always arrived in the sky in one go. Ru Xian closed her eyes. He was chewing on them as if she was sensing something. He wanted to refine all the bodies of water in the Rui Commandery so that he could make preparations for his breakthrough in the distance. Fifth layer Li of the spirit turtle saw or a black curtain of clouds on heavenly the horizon. Tribulation. Rain as on the other side, as a cow's hair, he spent half a day dealing with most of the matters regarding the 100 schools of thought. It was like white Then he went to the school of silently nourishing everything on the ground. In search of Ru Xian descended from in the alchemy room and landed on a plane. Xian had already refined the jade melting cauldron all the way to her waist. She was currently refining a cauldron of pills. You were looking for a place where it rained slightly. Li Qingshan looked a little uneasy. Landed close behind when he suddenly heard this is the first lesson calling him from outside the door. Extended he got up and opened the door. The rain in the surroundings a smile immediately appeared on his face, gathering in her palm. Congratulations, and turning fellow into a white ball of water. You've taken in another beautiful woman. Li Qingshan raised his hand. You'll only be envious all the rainwater within a radius of 300 meters was suddenly sucked away. It was rare for Li Qingshan to hear that she didn't say anything without any rainwater. But the ridicule on her face was simply undisguised. As long as he wanted to, sucking away all the rainwater within 5 kilometers was nothing difficult. Interrupted. In terms of control over water, don't make me keep explaining. Ru Xian paled in comparison to him. TSK. Looks like it's not like this. Look carefully. I'm not as lecherous as you think. Handed the white ball of water in her hand boasting to Li. If she really was lustful by nature, found then just that how every drop of rainwater were there among the night roamers, but they did not merge with each other. They came in all shapes and seemingly chaotic. Even a harem. There was not a single collision paled in comparison. Ru Xian, as long as the night roamers prospered and developed, as if she was immersed to a different very deep every day. Li Qingshan until the end of time. The big ball of water in his hand, stupid, and stretched out his hand again. Could not help but gathering the rainwater again. Even the minor he found that it was not an easy task to maintain the whole ball. Would often go also to maintain the dance of thousands. It was completely normal for them to have a few concubines outside. Casually threw the ball of water in her hand already be regarded. And it turned into a cloud of mist in this aspect, landing on Li Qingshan's face. He just felt a little wet, and the cloud of mist dispersed. He said in surprise, "Go? You haven't said anything yet?" Ru Xian said, "This kind of free class. What else do you want to listen to?" Li Qingshan curled his lips. "How much do you want?" "I don't want to say how much. Take that thing in your hand." Ru Xian flew away and came to the edge of a village, a small fenced courtyard. A yellow dog that guarded the yard barked at her, and when she glared at it, it immediately whimpered, and went back to its kennel with its tail between its legs. Then she pointed at a water tank in the corner, and with the same stare at Li Qingshan, she said, "Put your head in. What kind of cultivation is this? I've seen many big rivers and lakes. What can a water tank do? Don't try to fool me." Ru Xian smiled slightly, or more accurately, it was a fake smile. Immediately, Li Qingshan looked at her for a while, then helplessly walked to the water tank and plunged his head into the water tank. In the house, a farmer woman held a kitchen knife in her hand and looked out through the crack of the door in fear and saw this strange scene. A fairy-like woman in white stood in the middle of the courtyard, and a tall man plunged his head into the water tank. After a long time, Ru Xian knocked on the water tank and said with a smile, "Let's go." Still without any explanation, Li Qingshan ran around with Ru Xian and saw all kinds of water, from wells to puddles, from small streams to deep pools. Except for the water ball that was in Li Qingshan's hand at the beginning. It felt a bit like cultivation, but at other times it was completely performance art, or more like he was being played. For example, the well that he jumped into turned out to be a dry well. He said, "There's no water here." Ru Xian said, "No water is right." Then she sealed the well cover, and it was sealed for a whole day. Li Qingshan sat at the bottom of the well. He even had the intention to kill. If someone else were bold enough to trick him like this, he would have punched them in the head a long time ago. However, Ru Xian's various requests really were similar to performance art. They seemed very silly and pointless, but they also seemed to carry a very deep meaning. For the sake of cultivation, Li Qingshan could only endure. He felt it. Ru Xian seemed to be in a rather bad mood. She did not even crack a joke. Her face was sunken and cloudy. Only when he finished cultivating, or in other words, when he was fooled successfully, would she crack a smile like the sky had cleared up. Of course, he was not the kind of infatuated man who was willing to do all kinds of stupid things to make a beauty smile. All of this was for cultivation. Yes, that's right. Even if he felt that the smile was good, it was nothing more than friendship. Several days later, under the dripping eaves of a broken temple on a barren mountain, Ru Xian just sat on the stone steps, holding her cheek, staring at the cloudy sky, for a long time without saying a word. And Li Qingshan sat beside her, looking at the water droplets. Like millions of their predecessors, they fell into the dents on the bluestone slabs, smashed to pieces. What was the meaning of this behavior? She still didn't say. Li Qingshan listened to the sound of the rain, and his mood gradually calmed down. He recalled the various kinds of water he encountered in the past few days. The water trapped in the vat silently seeped through every crack. The bottom of the dry well revealed a moist breath. The deep and dark pool could not be seen at a glance, and the turbid and shallow puddle clearly reflected the sky and her face. Ru Xian suddenly stood up and stretched. "Well, it's almost time to go back. What is the meaning of all this?" Li Qingshan couldn't help but ask. "How do I know?" Ru Xian spread out her hands. "So, you admit that you have been fooling me these days?" Li Qingshan approached her with a bad look. "Do you know what you mean to me?" "Huh." Li Qingshan was startled and stopped. "Just like I don't know what I mean to you. Water has no shape, and law has no fixed law. I can only let you see and feel. As for the meaning, you can only ask yourself, and it depends on your hand." Li Qingshan looked at the water ball in his hand. Under Ru Xian's request, he had been maintaining it for the past few days. Unknowingly, it had become stable. Although there was still a gap between him and Ru Xian, it had improved a lot. "Seems like you have a point." Ru Xian was silent for a moment. "These words, I didn't say it. My mother told me." "Your mother? Did she also let you plunge your head into a bathtub or lock you in a dry well? What Li Qingshan really wanted to ask was not this question, but looking at Ru Xian's expression, he couldn't bring himself to ask it. How could my mother fool me? Ru Xian had a look of, "Are you an idiot?" on her face. Li Qingshan rolled his eyes, then smiled in relief. This guy had finally returned to normal. Ru Xian suddenly took out a neatly folded 1,000-mile sound transmission talisman and listened attentively for a moment. "Master is calling me. Hey, Chu Tian is awake." "Then I have to see." Li Qingshan smiled. He also knew that cultivation was not an overnight success, since he had seen what he needed to see. The next step was to comprehend and find the meaning. The two flew together into the sky. As they passed through the clouds, Li Qingshan suddenly said, "If you don't tell me, of course I don't know what I mean to you. And if you want to know what you mean to me, you can ask me directly. People are not water. People can understand each other." Above the clouds, the sun shone brightly, the blue sky was blue, and the pure white sea of clouds rose and fell continuously to the horizon. Ru Xian was slightly startled, then smiled brightly. "Maybe." Chapter 6:21. In the underground library of Benevolence Island, Chu Tian floated amidst the faint light emitted by the water of recollection like a soap sponge. His chaotic sea of consciousness was like a pool of stagnant water. Bubbles rose and rippled as he was forcefully stirred up. Suddenly, Chu Tian's eyes opened once more. He stared at the darkness before him, no longer empty and numb. Another flash of inspiration appeared. "Where is this place?" Bang! He struggled to punch the glass, then a second, a third. His fist was soon a bloody mess, blood permeating the light blue water of recollection. Crack! Cracks appeared on the glass. He punched harder and harder, causing the cracks to spread. Finally, with a crash, the glass shattered and the water of recollection flowed out. He fell to the ground. He wanted to prop himself up, but for a moment he was powerless and unable to move. The light in the passageway gradually brightened until the surroundings were illuminated. Hua Xiai walked up to Chu Tian. "You're finally awake." Chu Tian's lips trembled for a long time before he managed to say, "Who are you, and who am I?" Qian Rongji slowly opened her eyes. She felt that she was lying on a bed, covered by a thin blanket. She could hear the sound of waves coming from beneath her, and the fragrance of lotus flowers was everywhere. Master to teach me the Naraka scripture. This small room was heaven, because she had just returned from hell. This is the waterside pavilion sliding down to her neck. She gently grabbed a brief blank. "Perhaps killing you her now memories is the best quickly choice. Returned. What do you think?" And occupied her mind. "I think so too." She sat otherwise, and the thin blanket slid over her body. "Silly child! Only then did she realize that she was naked." Gu Yanning subconsciously touched her skin. There was a trace of pity on her shattered skin. Had already recovered its smoothness. However, but it was still somewhat pale from the loss of blood. Angrier than humiliation. She got off the bed and walked to the mirror. She straightened up, only to see an alluring figure immediately woke up and she had perky breasts, a smooth abdomen, and slender legs. Why do you have to suffer like this? Although her appearance wasn't peerless, she could still be considered beautiful. However, her expression was gloomy, and a carp jumped out of the lake. Or dissatisfaction that a woman should have when looking at herself in the mirror. Respect. Her eyes were calm and unperturbed, as if she was looking at a rotting corpse. She had never done. She turned her body around in her life and reflected her she was bullied in the Qian family. Her face, however, she was still a cheap practitioner. After all, her posture was extremely strange. You can't possibly think that I'll just pass on the highest secret technique of the school of legalism and clean back. There was the existence of a snake. It was still that gorgeous Li Qingshan. However, it had become much larger, curling into the shape of an 8. They saw Chu Tian as
sitting
if it
there
wanted to
quietly
devour
with a
itself as well,
blanket draped
but
over
it didn't
him.
move at all.
Although his cultivation
It seemed to
was
have fallen into a
destroyed,
deep
and he
sleep.
was not much
A
stronger
smile
than a
appeared on her
mortal,
pale face.
he gave off a deep
She
and
recalled
lofty
the situation
feeling.
at that
I'll
time.
leave this place to you.
Dozens of hell
He has
snakes
recovered
were
some of
biting
his
her
memories
body
from his previous
originally,
life,
but
the
he seems to
effects
have
of the hell
lost
torture
all of his memories
were
from this
intermittent.
life.
However,
we
the
can't be
existence
sure.
of dozens of snakes
meant
told
that the pain would never
and turned to
end.
walk out the door.
This was the most
he had
realistic
completed his
situation for
responsibility
those souls
as
that
a
had
doctor.
sunk into hell.
Li Qingshan,
However,
and
she
Ru
would not
Xian
sit and
looked at
wait
each
for
other.
death.
Then
She maintained
maintained
a
a
sliver
sliver
of
of
consciousness in the pain
Fellow
that was on the
cultivators,
verge of collapse.
please tell me why I
She
lost my
controlled
memories
the
from this
colorful little
life.
snake,
And
from the
how did I
beginning,
suffer
it swallowed
such heavy injuries.
the other poisonous
Chu
snakes
Tian asked.
one by one.
In fact, what he
In the
wanted to ask
end,
the most
that
was where the
gorgeous little snake
sky-climbing
treated
vine
its
seed
own
buried
tail
in the
as
depths
another
of his
poisonous
soul went.
snake,
Were
and
they
tried
taken
to devour
away
it with all
by
its
these
might.
two people?
Only after
Li
she
Qingshan
comforted
was
it did
not
it
used
calm
to
down
this.
and fall
If the
into
original
a deep
Chu
sleep.
Tian
At
was a
that time,
hot-tempered
she
primary
also
school
fainted.
student.
Then
Rongji,
this person in front of
retracted
him
his
was a
gaze.
calm university
She
tutor.
walked out of the door.
They were two extremes.
Gu Yenying sat on
Why?
the edge of the balcony,
because you're
holding
a
a
bastard.
long fishing
Chu
rod in her
Tian
hand.
revealed
The
an
silk
interested
line
expression.
hung into the lotus pond.
Fellow cultivator,
She looked back
please
and asked,
explain. Did you sleep
Li
well?
Qingshan told him about the shameful
Rongji
things Chu
stepped
Tian
forward
had done
and knelt down.
Chu Tian heaved a long sigh and bowed deeply. I didn't expect this life to be so unbearable. No wonder I ended up like this. Please forgive me if I've offended you. You've really turned over a new leaf. You're the reincarnation of a celestial being. I wonder which layer of heaven you came from, and what does it look like up there? Tell me. Li Qingshan squatted down and carefully sized up Chu Tian. He was also very interested in the world outside the well that Golden Cicada had mentioned. Although I have recovered some of my memories from my previous life, they are incomplete. I'm afraid I can't answer your questions in a short time. Who knows if you're lying or not? Maybe you're pretending to be apologetic, but you actually hate me and are thinking about how to take revenge in the future. You might as well kill me with a palm. Li Qingshan raised his hand and was about to slap Chu Tian, but Ru Xian pulled him back. My master woke him up with great difficulty. I was the one who rudely provoked you first. Even if I'm killed, it's reasonable. Besides, it's just a hand that was cut off. How could I dare to have any resentment? If I can recover my memories, I'll tell you everything you want to know. Chu Tian silently ruled out the possibility that Li Qingshan had taken away the sky-climbing vine. He felt that Li Qingshan's voice was very familiar. He had fallen into a deep coma and seemed to have been awakened by this voice. Okay, I'll let you go for now. You'd better turn over a new leaf and look out for yourself. Li Qingshan withdrew his hand. He was not afraid of Chu Tian's revenge at all. So what if Chu Tian was the reincarnation of a celestial being? Now that his cultivation was ruined, he didn't know how many years it would take for him to return to the Golden Core realm. At that time, it would be a matter of one move. And what surprised him was that just now his murderous aura was awe-inspiring, but Chu Tian didn't even bat an eyelid. Instead, he looked like he was deep in thought. This kind of willpower, not to mention the original Chu Tian. Even people like Lu Chongqing couldn't compare. Ru Xian moved to the side. Okay, since you've already woken up, you can leave. Let me remind you, it's best if you hide your identity and leave quietly. Otherwise, your life might be in danger. Chu Tian said, Does this have something to do with that woman named Qian Rongji? Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. Just now, when he was denouncing Chu Tian's various evil deeds, he mentioned that Chu Tian deserved to know Qian Rongji. Unexpectedly, Chu Tian remembered it. If it's just a simple qi deviation, why would I be treated in such a secret place? Although I've offended this fellow Taoist, he's broad-minded. I don't think he would make things difficult for a cripple. He must have some powerful enemies outside. Please don't hesitate to tell me. Although I don't have anything on me right now,
Once I recover a bit more of my memories, I will definitely repay this life-saving grace. Chu Tian said very sincerely. In his heart, he was already cursing the original Chu Tian. As his reincarnation, his talent and perception far surpassed ordinary people, and he also had a strange treasure like the heaven-climbing vine. But in 20 years, he had only passed one heavenly tribulation. He was simply a waste. His character was so bad that he didn't even bother to pay attention to his savior, leaving him to fend for himself. Fortunately, he was very lucky and did not die from this unexpected disaster. He even recovered some of his previous life's memories in advance, so he did not have to worry about the memories of the two lives. It could be considered as a blessing in disguise. The most important thing now was to understand his current situation and what kind of world he was in. Swords. Only then could he slowly drifted through them. It was a dangerous and beautiful landscape and basic interpersonal relationships in the 100 schools of thought. At the tallest from an objective point of view, it was surrounded by cliffs. Even apes would struggle to climb it. Also mentioned only birds could fly over it. However, came to visit there were two men and a woman sitting at the top of the mountain, overlooking the mountains, and left him some food and books, and drank alcohol. After Li Qingshan, they were all graceful and graceful like immortals. Softly, "Little junior brother, you're late." When Li Qingshan lambasted him for his the three of them made their way over from afar, even threatened his life. The oldest male he could maintain his composure. He seemed to be in his 40s or 50s, and his bearing was the most involuntarily and level-headed. No one could tell that he was someone who would betray his master. First senior brother, this is my friend, as well as the Scarlet Hawk commander of the Clear River Prefecture. Li Qingshan, Chu Danqing introduced. Friend, we're gathering together, yet you've called an outsider over. What's the meaning of this? The female cultivator squinted her eyes and studied Li Qingshan. She found the name to be rather familiar. She was in her 30s, thin and beautiful. She wore a dark palace dress, and she truly was a beauty. However, her cheekbones were rather high, which made her seem rather mean. Chu Danqing said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Second senior sister, before master passed away, he told me that if my seniors came looking for me, Commander Li must accompany them and uphold justice. Li Qingshan, are you the commander, Li, who defeated the other folk in the Marquis estate? I've heard a lot about you. Now that I've seen you today, you really are extraordinarily valiant. However, I'm afraid it's inconvenient for you to participate in the matters of our sect today. Commander, my master is advanced in age, so his mind is a little muddled. Please don't take offense. In the end, the third senior brother was amiable. His round face carried a smile the entire time, but he seemed a little like a street person. He spoke politely, but he also wanted to get Li Qingshan to leave. With his reminder, the first senior brother and second senior sister both shivered. I was wondering why it sounds so familiar. Turns out it's that mad tiger. The news of the clash between Gu Yenying and Si Qing in the Marquis estate spread like wildfire. Li Qingshan's reputation rose as a result, but the main reason for his fame was not because he defeated the fire devourer Zhu Lai and helped Gu Yenying win the crucial battle. Instead, it was because he had publicly cursed Edan. With such reckless, crazy actions, he became known as the Mad Tiger. As the three of them studied Li Qingshan studied the three of them too. The strongest was the first senior brother, who was at late foundation establishment, while the second senior sister and third senior brother were both at mid-foundation establishment. They really could not pose much of a threat. Chu Sherdao was quite good at teaching his disciples, but unfortunately, he only taught them how to draw and not how to conduct themselves. Chu Danqing wanted to introduce the three of them to Li Qingshan, but Li Qingshan interrupted him. Even if you tell me, I can't be bothered to remember it. If the three of you have something to say, just say it. I'll make my own judgment. What he hated the most was these empty courtesies, let alone with three scumbags like them. The first senior brother and second senior sister were slightly angered. Only the third senior brother maintained his smile, but it was rather forced. The second senior sister said, "Commander Li, you sure don't hold back." Li Qingshan turned around and arrived on the edge of the cliff, gazing at the scenery of the mountain. Chu Danqing said, "Senior brothers and sisters, just say what you have to say." "Little junior brother, there's nothing we can do to be envious of masters doting on you. All we can do is cultivate diligently and not embarrass master. If anyone mentions us, don't call them Great Master Chu. Don't think that we're coveting master's belongings. You can keep them for yourself, but if master has any last words, you have to tell us." The first senior brother's words were reasonable. If an outsider heard it, they would think that Chu Danqing was taking advantage of master's doting on him. Not only did he swallow the inheritance, but he also deliberately refused to tell master's last words. However, Chu Danqing knew that the so-called last words and explanation were all referring to the secret of the painting tomb. Before he could answer, the second senior sister said, "What the first senior brother said is reasonable, but there's one thing I don't agree with. Little junior brother, you can keep the other paintings, but you have to take out master's wife's painting and let us take turns worshiping it. I've already said that master's wife has already left with master." Chu Danqing had vaguely heard Chu Sherdao mention that the first senior brother had betrayed him for fame and fortune, but the second senior sister was slightly different. She had once been rather close to Chu Sherdao, and it had already surpassed the relationship between master and disciple. However, in Chu Sherdao's eyes, there was only that painting, so jealousy turned into hatred. Even with the temptation of the painting tomb, she did not forget about the painting and wanted to vent her anger. A painting will commit suicide. Who do you think will believe such an absurd lie? Unless you want to keep it for yourself to enjoy. You're shameless. Chu Danqing was so angry that he could not speak. "I'm shameless. Can I talk about what you did? I don't want to hear any last words. Hand over the painting, and I'll leave now. Do you want to keep it as a family treasure and pass it on to your descendants after you're done using it? What a great idea." Li Qingshan frowned. He slid and instantly appeared in front of the second senior sister. He raised his right hand and gave her a solid slap on the face. His actions were like moving clouds and flowing water, indescribably smooth and natural. After cultivating to the late stage of foundation establishment, the strength of his human cultivation had also greatly improved. With his magic tools, he was already standing at the peak of foundation establishment cultivators. The second senior sister was only in the middle stage of foundation establishment, and the painter was not good at close combat. She could not react at all. Although she also had spiritual power to protect her body, she was instantly defeated by the endless water spiritual power in Li Qingshan's hand. She covered her face and glared at Li Qingshan in shock and anger. "You actually dare." There was also a faint trace of fear. "He's only in the late stage of foundation establishment, which is only a small realm higher than me. How can he be so powerful? It's already a light punishment to speak nonsense. If you dare to speak nonsense again, do you believe that I won't keep you as a family treasure? After I'm done using you, I'll pass it on to my descendants." The second senior sister waved her hand, and scrolls flew out and unfolded behind her. Many ferocious ghost beasts were drawn on them, ready to come out at any moment. The eldest senior brother and third senior brother also hurriedly activated their spiritual tools and magic tools to protect themselves. They also took out the scrolls. The strength that Li Qingshan displayed shocked them. The eldest senior brother said, "It seems that the commander insists on interfering in this matter." The third senior brother said, "Don't you know that right and wrong are caused by talking too much, and all troubles are caused by standing up for others?" Li Qingshan sneered. "That's right. Do you still dare to fight me?" Suddenly, the surrounding light and shadows twisted and changed, while beasts leaped out of thin air and roared angrily, echoing between the mountains. 100 Beasts Formation. Chu Danqing cried out. This 100 Beasts Formation required 100 paintings, and each painting was an extremely ordinary jackal, wolf, tiger, leopard, pig, dog, cow, and sheep. However, the strength of each beast was equivalent to the early stage of foundation establishment, and the formation they formed was even more shocking. Since the formation was activated so quickly, it was obvious that it was set up in advance to deal with him. The second senior sister flew into the sky and shouted sternly, "Li Qingshan, die! If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Iso. If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as slaughtering chickens." Li Qingshan laughed. Then he retracted his hand in front of him, light flashing between his fingers. "What are you holding in your hand?" "Just a sound recording stone. Your words have already been left here as proof. In the future, it can be considered an explanation to Commander Gu." Li Qingshan put the sound recording stone back into his 100 treasures pouch. Before coming here with Chu Danqing, he had not planned on negotiating peacefully with them. "Do you think you can still live?" Li Qingshan did not answer. He patted Chu Danqing's shoulder. "Put away the paintings and focus on defending." "Ah, trust me." Chu Danqing put away the paintings, leaving only a few defensive paintings, which formed an impenetrable wall around him. Li Qingshan also activated the defensive artifacts on him, and then used a few defensive arts to cover him and Chu Danqing. "I thought you had some tricks up your sleeve. So you just want to be a coward." Second senior sister laughed shrilly. Eldest senior brother said, "Be careful. A long night is fraught with dreams." "Attack." 100 fierce beasts pounced at them with bared fangs and brandished claws. There were also poisonous insects and fierce beasts summoned by the other 3 paintings. They filled their vision and drowned them. It had to be said that the school of painting was indeed outstanding. As long as they had enough time to accumulate, they could completely accumulate an army. A lone cultivator could only try to capture the ringleader first, but now that they were trapped in the formation, there was no such possibility. Li Qingshan raised his head slightly and sniffled, determining the position of the 3. If he only used human cultivation methods, he was confident that he could break out of the formation, but the situation would definitely be very dangerous, and it would be difficult to protect Chu Danqing. Moreover, he was not willing to let another person know of his secret. At some point, a thin talisman had appeared between the 2 fingers of his right hand. A purple talisman. He raised his right hand lightly, and the purple talisman flew out. Under the control of his spiritual will, it flew through the gaps between the fierce beasts, shattered in midair, and burst forth. A red sphere the size of a human had suddenly expanded by 1,000 times. It was like a red sun rising from the mountain peak. One by one, the beasts were engulfed by the red light. In the face of this violent power, the power of a mere early-stage foundation establishment cultivator was simply too insignificant. The majestic 100 Beasts formation lasted only for a moment before turning to ashes. The red sun released thousands of rays of light, illuminating the entire sky. Time seemed to have stopped in that instant. It felt like a long time had passed before a deafening boom could be heard. However, he obviously did not have any lecherous thoughts, as in the next moment, his fingers would pierce through her rather thin chest and dig out a bloody heart. The tiger demon digs out the heart had always been his favorite move. Second senior sister saw the corner of his mouth curl up slightly. His eyes seemed to flash with a red light, and a murderous aura went straight to her heart. She recalled the scene when eldest senior brother and third junior brother were killed. He will kill me without hesitation, like slaughtering a chicken or a dog. Fear overwhelmed everything. Second senior sister's legs went soft, and she really knelt down with her head on the ground. She felt a deep sense of humiliation and shouted, "Don't kill me!" Li Qingshan's hand hung in the air. He was very surprised. She looked like she was facing death calmly just now, but in the blink of an eye, she turned into a pile of mud. "Can't you have some backbone of a foundation-building cultivator?" She looks smart. Doesn't she know I'm deliberately playing with her? When a person is about to die, there are not many who can face death calmly. She obviously did not have this kind of courage. Even if she knew Li Qingshan was playing with her words just now, she was like a drowning person. Even if there was a life-saving straw, she would desperately grab it. Even if she could live a little longer, it would be good. Li Qingshan smiled. "Since you've already said something, I'll think about it." Second senior sister clenched her teeth. Her mouth was full of the taste of blood. She slowly raised her head and kowtowed. She thought to herself, "Li Qingshan, if I escape today, I'll definitely cut you into 1,000 pieces in the future." This time, it was Li Qingshan who felt a little embarrassed. He had killed countless people in his life, and he did not lack all kinds of cruel methods. However, it was the first time that he made his enemy kneel and kowtow to him. If it was a man who was so disgusting, he would immediately kick him. But since it was a beautiful female cultivator with an extraordinary temperament, he could endure it a little. I'm giving her a taste of her own medicine, but she can't really think that I'll let her go after she kowtowed a few times and slapped herself a few times, right? Second senior sister kowtowed a few times, and the last bit of her courage disappeared without a trace. She repeatedly cried, "Commander Li, I was confused for a moment. Please spare my life. I won't dare to do it again." "Wait until you finish what you have to do." Li Qingshan laughed. His devil heart faintly stirred. After the second senior sister kowtowed, she slapped herself left and right. Li Qingshan ordered again, "Raise your head." Second senior sister raised her head. Her hair was disheveled, and her eyes were hazy with tears. She looked like she was begging for mercy, while her cheeks had become bright red from the slaps. "Who told you to stop? Continue." "Why, yes." The demonic nature in Li Qingshan's heart burned brightly. The two of them returned to the 100 schools of thought. The news that Li Qingshan had broken through to the late stage of foundation establishment spread like wildfire, once again shocking the 100 schools of thought. Such a cultivation speed was simply shocking. It turned out that he was not just talking nonsense when he said that he would break through to the golden elixir realm before the age of 30. Li Qingshan dealt with a group of people who came to congratulate him and called Hua, Sengzan, Hantie, and the others. They sat on the ground in the bamboo forest of Cloudy Island and drank together. Li Qingshan raised his cup and said, "Last time, there were too many idlers waiting, and Yifeng and those bastards came to cause trouble, so we couldn't drink to our heart's content. Today, we won't go back until we're drunk." After 3 rounds of drinking, Li Qingshan had already drunk a few jars. Seeing that Hua Sengzan wanted to say something but stopped, he pulled him to the lakeside. "You're worried about her, right?" Is she okay?" "Don't worry, I've already arranged for her to be in a safe place. If you want to know, I can tell you. Don't worry, I haven't done anything yet. If I really do something, it'll really be too late," Li Qingshan said with a chuckle. "There's no need. I have too many responsibilities, and I'm too weak. Please help me pass on a message. Just say, I've let her down. In my next life, I'm willing to be an ox or a horse to repay her affection, Hua Sungzan said apologetically. You have to be prepared. The same goes for you. With the great General Lord's orders, Edan won't dare to do anything to the Han family for now, but if he has the chance, he'll definitely think of a way to kill you. Him holding back is the scariest thing. I don't want my sister to become a widow before marrying into the family. Don't worry, I'm also the son-in-law of the Han family. At this moment, Chu Danqing had already finished the last stroke, completing the banquet in the bamboo forest painting. Everyone gathered around to take a look, only to see that everyone's voice and smile had entered the painting, vivid and lifelike. Best of all, they could even hear the music of the zither and see the flying sword Qi. Qingqing couldn't help but ask, Danqing, you're in such a good mood tonight, but you still haven't told us what you went to do with Qingshan. Chu Danqing's mind cleared, and he couldn't help but look at Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan nodded slightly. The deaths of 3 Foundation establishment cultivators was no small matter. It would be exposed very soon, and deliberately hiding it would only make him look guilty. Chu Danqing then roughly explained the whole story, but he hid the secret of the painting tomb and the matter of the purple talisman. When he finished in one breath, the bamboo forest fell completely silent. Only the sound of the wind could be heard whistling through the forest. Everyone's gazes gathered on Li Qingshan's face once more. Aside from respect, there was also some fear. He had killed 3 Foundation establishment cultivators by himself, and after returning, he was still chatting and drinking as if nothing had happened. It's not that I'm fond of killing. It's just that the circumstances of the world push me. If I don't kill, people will kill me. Li Qingshan took out the recording stone and replayed what the 3 of them had said. He felt helpless. I didn't think they'd be so bold. They all deserve to die. Wei Yongsheng scolded furiously, and the others all chimed in. However, no one present was an idiot. They all thought to themselves, you've even prepared a recording stone, so it's probably not just because the circumstances of the world push you. Under his forthright appearance, there was no lack of schemes and schemes. As it seemed, he had his own reasons for being bold enough to oppose Edan in public. However, if he had such a powerful friend, then it would be for the best. Danqing, why didn't you ask us to go with you and support you? With Qingshan taking action, is there a need for us to interfere? Haha, that's true. Compared to elegant matters like poetry, playing the zither, or painting, at the end of the day, the most primitive form of slaughter was more convincing. The prevalence of duels in the Dragon Province was not without reason. Late in the night, the banquet dispersed just now. Li Qingshan was already 70 to 80% drunk, only 20 to 30% sober. That's not bad, but aren't humans and demons irreconcilable? Jia Zhen said, that's not the case. The founding emperor borrowed the power of the 10 demon kings to unite the world when he fell ill. Doesn't the White Hawk commander of the Rui Commandery, Gu Yenying, possess the bloodline of demons? As a result, whether you're an enemy or a friend has nothing to do with your identity or race, but with your common interests. If your interests clash, even if you're of the same race or even brothers, you'll still have to fight to the death. Your Excellency should have already experienced this point. Li Qingshan smiled. That makes even more sense. However, I'd like to ask, where are our common interests? If only the headquarters were working with a tiger. Jia Zhen said, with your wisdom, do you really think we'll be able to fool you? Common interests need to be found together. Getting along peacefully beats risking your life and carrying out vendettas, right? She looked down at him from above. Steward Zheng said. If you have anything to say, say it quickly. Your Highness, please avenge my father. Who is your enemy? Si Qing was a little displeased. The Scarlet Hawk commander of the Clear River Prefecture, Li Qingshan. The young man was utterly furious. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's that Li Qingshan again. Didn't you say that you have a secret to tell me? Your Highness, please avenge me. Raise your head. Are you trying to negotiate with me? I wouldn't dare. It's just that this secret is extremely important." The young man made eye contact with Si Qing, and his face paled. "Say it. There's nothing to hide." It has to do with the painting tomb." The painting tomb. As it turned out, Chu Danqing's first senior brother had always been cautious. After he left, he told this secret to his most beloved son, just in case, but he never thought he would really never return. Meanwhile, the news of Li Qingshan killing the three of them spread very quickly. This child was both hateful and afraid. Not only was Li Qingshan's cultivation powerful, but he also had Gu Yenying's support. He even possessed a recording stone as evidence. With his strength, not only was it impossible for him to avenge his father, but he was also constantly afraid that Li Qingshan would come and eliminate him. In the end, he made up his mind to offer this secret to Prince Si Qing, who had grievances with Li Qingshan. All he wanted was to avenge his father and receive protection. Si Qing listened to the whole story. In other words, you only know who grasped the secret of the painting tomb, and you heard it from your father. Whether this piece of information is true or not is questionable. It must be true. Believe me, Your Highness. I guarantee it on my head. Apart from you, does anyone else know about this? Absolutely not. Si Qing patted his shoulder amiably. Don't worry, I will avenge your father and you. Li Qingshan left the cavern and arrived in Moon Court Lake again. With a wave of his right hand, the water before him condensed into a mirror. A while later, his mirror clone emerged. Li Qingshan took back the water god seal and began to circulate the arts of the boundless ocean. After breaking through to the 6th layer, his dantian could hold even more spiritual energy, just like how he could hold even more water after expanding a pool. This required the consumption of a large number of medicinal pellets in order to cultivate. However, after reaching this realm, the requirements for medicinal pellets had also become higher. Low-grade medicinal pellets, such as qi-gathering pellets, were already harmful, but high-grade medicinal pellets were not easy to obtain. Unless it was someone with a background like Gu Yenying or Si Qing, most cultivators would have to spend a large amount of time and effort to absorb and refine spiritual energy bit by bit in order to cultivate. Chapter 6:29. The sun shone brightly in the clear sky, on a platform 100 feet high in the Marquis of Rui's estate. Si Qing held a cup of alcohol in one hand and placed his other hand on the railing, gazing into the distance. One after another, the flying dragon ships hovered in the air. Streaks of light flew over from the horizon. The entrance to the Marquis' estate was packed with people. They were all cultivators from various parts of the Rui commandery. They had come to congratulate him on becoming the Marquis of Rui and to participate in or observe the upcoming exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures. Si Qing turned around and let out a long laugh with his jackal-like voice. Thank you all for rushing over from various places. Si Qing will drink first as a sign of respect. He downed the alcohol in his cup. A banquet had already been laid out on the platform. A group of cultivators sat there, consisting of both men and women, monks and laymen. Every single one of them possessed an extraordinary bearing. There were cultivators from the academy as well as cultivators from sections. There was only one standard for those who could sit there, golden core cultivators who had undergone the second heavenly tribulation. Gu Yening was among them too. She raised her cup and smiled. Si Bao ignored Si Qing and sat down with her. She asked about Qian Rongji. How is she? Is she participating in the exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures this time? Everyone raised their cups and congratulated Si Qing again. Only then did Gu Yening say to Si Bao, "Oh, her? She's cultivating right now." At this moment, Qian Rongji rowed a skiff in the waterside pavilion of Listening Wind, drifting through the sea of flowers. A gentle breeze blew by, and the sea of flowers rose and fell. The fragrance of flowers permeated the surroundings. It was like a paradise. However, her face did not ease up at all. She scanned through the sea of flowers as she cursed Gu Yening furiously inside. All of this was because Gu Yening had said before she left, "I want to eat lotus seed soup." Qian Rongji was forced to search through the sea of flowers. Originally, finding lotus flowers in such a vast expanse should have been an extremely simple matter, but this space remained in spring and summer the entire time, so the lotus flowers bloomed all the time. As for lotus seeds, they would only ripen in autumn and winter after the lotus flowers had withered. Moreover, this sea of flowers was both real and illusory. Sometimes when he saw a lotus flower, he would stretch out his hand and touch nothing. He couldn't even fly in the sky and use his divine sense to explore. He could only slowly row the boat and search. She had been searching for a few hours and had not even collected a single lotus seed, but she could not give up just like that. She recalled how Gu Yening hadn't taught her the slightest bit of the path of cultivation during her stay in the waterside pavilion of Listening Wind. Instead, she'd ordered her to do all sorts of chores. She couldn't even cultivate normally. It was as if they were intentionally making fun of her, causing her to be trapped here for the rest of her life as a slave and unable to soar in the world. In that case, she would have to think of a way to leave this place as soon as possible. However, Gu Yening's final words dispelled this thought. "Your performance over the past few days has satisfied me. This will be the final test. If you can complete it, I will pass on to you the illustrations of Naraka's scripture. If you can't, I will expel you from the school. You can go wherever you want." Qian Rongji could only continue her search patiently. Her mind gradually calmed down, and the thick fragrance of flowers seemed to have seeped into her body. The hell snake fell into a deep slumber, once more no longer joyfully feasting on her pain. She truly did not feel pain anymore. It was not just the pain brought on by the hell snake, but also the anxiety, fury, jealousy, and hatred. All of them had been pacified. She had almost forgotten that living in this world was such a relaxing and joyful thing. She stood at the bow of the boat in a daze. When she looked back, the waterside pavilion of Listening Wind had already disappeared. She was completely lost in this sea of flowers. Her past memories came flooding back. Her mother was washing clothes nearby, exhorting her, "Be careful." She turned a deaf ear to her mother, staring at a small fish in the clear and shallow stream, pouncing on empty air. Her father walked along the ridge of fields, carrying the fish he had caught from the paddy fields. She skipped behind him. The boy next door had secretly given her some soft candy. Later on, he had even come to visit her, his face full of awkwardness and disappointment. Had these things really happened? Then why had she forgotten about them? She vaguely understood that they had a great connection to this sea of flowers, but were these memories real? Or perhaps they were just illusions created by this strange sea of flowers. She did not dare to be certain. However, the rims of her eyes became somewhat moist, and she felt a strange sourness in her heart. This feeling was not painful, but rather like tears of happiness. Although bitter, it was also sweet. In a daze, she saw a lotus flower in the distance wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, All that was left was a solitary lotus pod. Even the dark green stem had turned yellow and withered, as if it had used up all of its vitality in the long flowering period. Unable to support the weight of the lotus pod fell into the lake with a plop. Qian Rongji had no time to think about it. She jumped into the water to fish up the lotus pod. Because it was obscured by the endless lotus leaves, the lake was dark and gloomy. Moreover, it was unexpectedly deep. Flower stems stretched out from the pitch-black bottom of the lake, making it seem like an underwater forest. However, this could not obstruct her vision. She saw with her own eyes where the lotus pod had fallen. Like a swimming fish, she circled around the flower stems and arrived there to fish up the lotus pod. However, the moment her fingertips touched the mud, her entire body trembled and her pupils dilated. Flower stalks burrowed out of the mud and quickly grew. The power was so great that her entire body was lifted up. She rose up and soon broke through the surface of the lake. Lotus flowers bloomed one after another. She suddenly understood. Sitting cross-legged at the bow of the boat, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, allowing the fragrance of the flowers to completely permeate her lungs. Beside her, the lotus flowers began to wither. She allowed the lotus pods to fall into the deep lake water and stretch out from the mud. They bloomed once again, multiplying from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. They filled the surface of the lake and surrounded the boat. Layer upon layer, they completely drowned her. Among them, faint sobs could be heard, which then turned into hysterical cries. On the high platform, Gu Yening's heart stirred. Her lips curled into a faint smile. At this moment, a gust of wind blew over the high platform, fluttering her clothes and long hair. All the cultivators present, including the monks who had become monks, could not help but be moved by her beauty. They secretly praised her. She truly was the daughter of the hawk god after all. Si Qing said, "Yening, I heard recently that your subordinate Li Qingshan has done something major again. He killed 3 foundation establishment cultivators of the School of Painting in a show of strength." Gu Yening nodded. "I've heard that too, but it seems like the 3 of them set up an ambush beforehand to kill him, but they were too weak, so he killed them." Si Qing said, "Then why don't we get him to explain everything? This is the Rui commandery. As the Marquis of Rui, I can't just turn a blind eye to this." Gu Yening blew on it. "All right." Afterwards, she said, "Li Qingshan, get over here. His Highness, the Prince, wishes to see you." Her voice was not very loud, but it drifted away with the wind, reaching the ears of every single cultivator. They all looked at one another. A while later, when Li Qingshan did not appear, Jia Zhen said, "Looks like the 2 of you still aren't respected enough. Speaking of which, he's even bold enough to not come on a day like today. That's pretty disrespectful." Yidan said, "I think he knows he's committed a great crime. So he's fled to avoid punishment? Commander Gu, you better issue a warrant for his arrest." Chapter 630. Yidan's face changed. Li Qingshan. The cultivators on the ground all stared at the figure in the sky with various expressions. Caretaker Zheng flew up and stopped Li Qingshan. "Flying is forbidden in the sky above the Marquis estate. Didn't you hear that the Marquis has invited you?" Li Qingshan did not stop at all. "Then please land on the ground and walk to the soaring clouds terrace. Wait for him to be summoned." Caretaker Zheng's face was cold. He behaved like he was going by the book, leaving no room for negotiation. It was a stark contrast to his humble attitude when he received Gu Yening that night. Before Li Qingshan could look back, Caretaker Zheng parted his hands, and yellow light blanketed Li Qingshan's head. He thought to himself, "I only showed you some respect for Gu Yening that day, yet you're actually bold enough to look down on a mighty golden core cultivator Like me? I'll show you what I'm capable of today, apart from the cultivators of the Clear River Prefecture. Most of the cultivators who had come to attend the ceremony below had heard of Li Qingshan's name. Seeing this, they all shook their heads inside. This Li Qingshan is far too arrogant. No matter how powerful he is, how can he be more powerful than a golden core cultivator? He's been slammed into the ground in front of so many people. He'll be utterly humiliated. Li Qingshan did not stop at all. The corner of his lips curled up, and he pushed forward with both hands. The huge wave surged, growing a foot taller with each inch it advanced. In the end, it turned into a tsunami over 30 meters tall and collided viciously with the yellow light. Boom! The tsunami surged and shattered, turning into specks of light that scattered. It was still rather difficult for a Foundation establishment cultivator to fend off a golden core cultivator. However, Li Qingshan's objective was not to defeat Caretaker Zhang, nor did he plan on facing him head-on. The moment the two forces collided, he immediately pulled back his hand and stomped down with his feet. Waves surged. Caretaker Zhang shuddered. The force from the tsunami was unexpectedly great. The yellow light dimmed slightly, and his attack was stopped. A figure suddenly rose up, breaking free from the range of the yellow light. With a turn in the air, he shot towards the soaring clouds restaurant like an arrow. Not good. Steward Zheng abruptly turned around and waved his hand to slap Li Qingshan. Just now, he had underestimated Li Qingshan, but he had held back because of Gu Yenying. Now, he didn't dare to hold back anymore. If Li Qingshan really reached Flying Cloud Tower, he would lose a lot of face, so he used all his strength in this move. Li Qingshan glanced sideways as the yellow light whizzed towards him. From the ground, the yellow light seemed like a huge fly swatter, while Li Qingshan was the tiny fly. The cultivators of the Clear River Prefecture all cried out, "Dodge!" If one was hit, they would definitely be severely injured. If it was an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator, they might even be killed on the spot. A golden core cultivator had an overwhelming power over a Foundation establishment cultivator. Li Qingshan turned around in the air and spread his hands, unleashing the vast ocean flow again. A region of turbulence formed in a radius of several meters, but the power within the yellow light was far too great. All of the turbulence collapsed wherever it passed by. It was unable to divert the enemy's power at all. Child's play. Caretaker Zheng sneered and used a little more force. With a bang, Li Qingshan was sent flying. What? Caretaker Zheng's expression changed immediately, as Li Qingshan had not been sent flying horizontally. Instead, he flew straight towards the soaring clouds restaurant with a smile on his face. Although he could not divert the power away and avoid harm, he could still divert it from the side to the front. Using this force, Li Qingshan's speed suddenly doubled. Caretaker Zheng was unable to catch up immediately. All he could do was watch as Li Qingshan flew towards the soaring clouds restaurant. Right when he was about to collide with the restaurant, his hands moved gently like willows in the spring, producing an extremely gentle force. He drifted upwards, leaping over the railing and sliding towards the center of the platform. Then he turned around and stabilized himself, facing Gu Yenying and Si Qing. He exhaled deeply and clasped his hands. Subordinate Li Qingshan greets Commander Gu and Your Highness. May I ask why you've summoned us so urgently? Cheers came from below the platform. The group of golden core cultivators did not say anything out of respect for Si Qing, but they were secretly praising him in their hearts. What impressive moves! He achieved his goal despite being obstructed by a golden core cultivator, and it's rare for him to do so with such ease. No wonder Commander Gu trusts him so much at such a young age. Your Highness! Caretaker Zheng chased up to the balcony. His originally amiable face was now somewhat flustered and exasperated. Old Zheng, go and entertain the guests. Caretaker Zheng glared at Li Qingshan's back. Brat, don't be arrogant. I'll make you die a horrible death in this exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures. Gu Yenying smiled. His Highness has a few questions to ask you. Just answer them truthfully. Li Qingshan, your cultivation is progressing very quickly. Si Qing studied Li Qingshan up and down. He was filled with indescribable surprise. How long had it been since they last met? Yet he had already gone from mid-foundation establishment to late foundation establishment. If he had always been close to breaking through the bottleneck, then there would have been nothing strange about it. However, the issue was his aura had already reached the level of peak foundation establishment. Not only did this mean that he possessed extremely great talent and ability to comprehend, but it also meant that he had great support behind him. According to the information, he had not been accepted by any sect. As it seemed, Gu Yenying really did value this kid. However, that was not strange either. Even among the princes of the Dragon Province, reaching peak foundation establishment in his 20s was extraordinary. In a place like the Rui Commandery, he would definitely be an outstanding genius. As a result, he became even more determined to kill him. Otherwise, once he really underwent the second heavenly tribulation and reached Golden Core, it would be difficult to kill him. It's all thanks to Commander Gu's nurturing. I wonder when I'll be able to repay this great kindness. Li Qingshan bowed slightly towards Gu Yenying in gratitude. He had already learned how to push everything onto Gu Yenying now. Gu Yenying smiled, but said nothing. She knew he was reminding her. Oi, you still owe me money. He smiled inside. If you want to endure and deceive me, then I'll let you endure and deceive me to your heart's content. You'll have to accept my deep friendship, whether you want or not. Si Qing continued to smile, but he was furious inside. This damned wretched demon is clearly playing along with my own scheme. He's forcing me to admit that we're allies in front of everyone, but calm down. Now's not the time to turn against him. That's exactly what I'm thinking. We might be of a different race, but we're still fellow cultivators who walk the path of cultivation. Fellow cultivators are nothing. We hit it off the moment we met. So why don't we just become brothers here? Si Qing was surprised. What do you mean become brothers? You wretched demon, you can go die. What? You're not willing? Don't tell me you lied to me the other day? North Moon's face suddenly sank slightly. Of course not. However, as a prince, I need the imperial family's permission to become brothers with someone. North Moon's face immediately cleared up, and he began to laugh. I see. Though, as a forthright man, I don't care about these empty formalities. You just need to get that imperial family or whatever to agree to it sooner. My dear brother, I'm a little older than you, so I'll just be frank and call myself your foolish brother. Ha ha ha. The group returned to the soaring clouds, terrace. North Moon released Si Qing's neck and made his way over to Gu Yenying. He leaned over and placed his hand on the table, saying lovingly, Yenying, you're here too. Gu Yenying smiled without saying anything. She said secretly, Li Qingshan, don't forget what you promised. TSK, how boring. North Moon straightened up and turned around. He asked, Dan, are you talking about beauties? Get them up here. We'll have a good look at them. Dan was taken aback before realizing that Dan was calling him. The beauties are coming right up. North Moon squeezed into a table with Si Qing without holding back. Suddenly, he frowned and pointed at Li Qingshan, who stood in the middle. Who are you? Don't stand there like a pillar. Go away, go away. You look a little familiar. I saw you upstairs the other day, right? Are you Li Qingshan? That's right. Li Qingshan bowed, slightly, and thought to himself, is this a monologue or a crosstalk? North Moon said, what are you standing here for? With your cultivation, you don't have the right. Li Qingshan said, I was summoned by His Highness the Prince. He said that I colluded with demons and demons upstairs the other day and killed a few of fellow Edan's disciples. Everyone's gazes immediately gathered on Edan. Just earlier, Li Qingshan's crime was still colluding with North Moon, but in the blink of an eye, North Moon had come to form an alliance with Si Qing. If they were really talking about colluding with wretches, who was it that was colluding with wretches right now? Li Qingshan, shut your mouth. Edan could only suffer in silence. He could not voice his bitterness. Something like that happened. Edan, you still can't forget it. I was the one who killed him. So if you have anything to say, you can directly tell me. If you don't feel like venting, I'll let you punch me 3 times. North Moon raised an eyebrow and pulled open his clothes, revealing his bare chest. Ha ha, you've misunderstood. Why would I care about such a small matter? I just don't like the look of this brat. That's good. Let's have a toast, and let bygones be bygones. North Moon raised his wine cup and clinked it with Edan's, downing it in one gulp. He then said rather impatiently to Li Qingshan, there's nothing else for you to do. Hurry up and leave. Right, Haidang said that she wants me to thank you. Silently, he said to Si Qing, what a coincidence. I left in too much of a hurry today, and didn't bring anything. Brother, what do you have? Just give him a couple of things, and have him leave quickly. You're clearly afraid that we'll kill your clone, so you purposely didn't bring anything. Si Qing ground his teeth in hatred, but he smiled. That's easy. He took out the black hoop from his Sumeru ring and passed it to North Moon. North Moon picked it up and fiddled around with it. He thought of something. This isn't an arcane artifact, but a demonic artifact. Although the demonic nature was hidden extremely well, it could not fool his senses as he practiced the demon suppression statuary. Sure enough, that bastard Si Qing was up to no good. Demonic artifacts can only be used by demon folk. If regular cultivators refined them without any knowledge, it was very likely for the demonic nature to enter their bodies and cause them to suffer from qi deviation. Giving it to me right now is the best. North Moon casually tossed the black hoop to Li Qingshan. Take it, Li Qingshan said. I can't accept a reward without doing anything. I can't accept this. North Moon immediately became displeased. You're bold enough to turn down something I've given away? Don't tell me you're still dreaming. Chapter 632. Li Qingshan glanced back at the soaring clouds terrace before turning around again. The corner of his lips curled into a mysterious smile. Humph, it's a joyous occasion, so I'll let you properly celebrate. Qingshan, are you fine? Han Qiongji went up to receive him. I'm fine. His Highness has been very good to me. He even gave me something. Li Qingshan waved the black hoop in his hand with a smile. Han Qiongji revealed a strange expression. Li Qingshan said, let's go. I still have to maintain order. You better go to Prefect Lu's place quickly. Come with me later. The White Wolf Guards patrolled the surroundings in groups of 2. A woman in the uniform of a White Wolf Guard stood nearby, waiting for Han Qiongji. Seeing Li Qingshan look over, she nodded at him in greeting. Li Qingshan returned the gesture with a smile. You better go. Your friend is waiting. Before the soaring clouds terrace was a large square. It was divided into a total of 9 formations, led by the prefects of the various prefects. The Scarlet Hawk commanders and generals stood to the left and right, while each formation was divided into over a dozen different colors. Those were the attires of the disciples of the various schools. Coupled with the cultivators from other sects in the surroundings, there were over 10,000 people, but it did not seem crowded at all. This was the first time Li Qingshan had seen so many cultivators stand together. He could not help but sigh. It really is a grand gathering. He passed through the square and discovered that the Clear River Prefecture's formation was the smallest among the 9 prefectures. It was nowhere near as populous as the other prefectures, but due to the baptism of war, the disciples of the Clear River Prefecture possessed a different bearing and edge. Wherever he passed by, the place would fall silent. Everyone stopped chatting and focused their gazes on him. At first glance, he did not seem particularly striking. His bronze face still seemed very young, but due to the hardships he had gone through, he possessed a sense of steadiness beyond his age. However, his features were still distinct, making him seem resolute and almost unruly. He was tall and sturdy, and he walked with composure. His expression was not as arrogant as he was rumored to be. His head was slightly lowered, as if he was in thought, but as his eyes wandered, everyone could feel that he did not take them seriously. He was like a fierce tiger quietly walking in the forest with a natural contempt. The leaders of the various prefectures were rather worried. With this person present in the Clear River Prefecture, the final display of martial arts probably won't be very optimistic. This was especially so for the heads of the School of Novels. They were thinking hard about how to limit this person's power during the School of Novels martial arts exhibition. What the ordinary disciples thought was that a few years ago he was just a nameless pawn without any background. If he could do something, it might not mean that they couldn't. This ignited their lofty ambitions. Qiongji, your Qingshan is almost at the peak of the foundation establishment realm, right? His cultivation speed is truly astonishing. I heard that at that time, Junior Marshal Sister Han was the one who took the initiative to pursue him. Your foresight is truly admirable. Do you have any wonderful methods to teach me? Recently, my family has also been forcing me to get married. They are clearly looking down on me. Ding Min was troubled. After Han Qiongji became a White Wolf Guard, she had been the one to show her around, and the two of them had become good friends. She was also born in an aristocratic family. If she couldn't advance further in the cultivation world, she had the responsibility of breeding children for her family. How am I supposed to have any foresight? I just like him. Han Qiongji withdrew her gaze from Li Qingshan and smiled valiantly. Big Sis Ding, you know my personality. If I fancy someone, I won't care about anything else. That's your good fortune. I really envy Qian Rongji. She's actually been accepted as a disciple by Commander Gu. Commander values your Qingshan very much. So why don't I get him to beg Commander Gu to accept you as a disciple as well? It's not like he's teaching 1 or 2 anyway. I hate begging people the most, and I don't want him begging people for me either. What a stubborn fool. Li Qingshan arrived at the Clear River Prefecture's formation and nodded at Chu Danqing, expressing that he was fine. Afterwards, he stood beside Lu Chongqing and waited quietly for the ceremony to begin. The others saw how he was in thought and in no mood to talk, so they were afraid to disturb him, which made him rather happy. He focused all of his attention on his clone. In response to North Moon's enthusiastic request, Si Qing arranged for singers and dancers to perform. He had no interest in these things, but Jiang Fu had kept quite a lot of them in the Marquis estate. When he inherited the position of Marquis of Rui, he had taken over all of them, so he could just barely make up the numbers. North Moon continued to sit with Si Qing, crossing his legs without the slightest care for his image. He casually picked up Si Qing's cup of alcohol and drank it. He did not use his chopsticks, directly grabbing it with his hand. As he drank, he watched attentively. His gaze never left the beauties of the dancers, as if he wanted to devour them in a single gulp. Although Si Qing was displeased from his behavior, exchanging glances with Jia Zhen and Yi Dan, There was a sense of delight from his scheme succeeding. Whether they were humans or demons, they could be controlled as long as they had desires. Gu Yenying smiled inside. This kid's acting like he's the real deal. Big sis, you said North Moon is impressive, but I don't think there's anything special about him. You better be careful. That Si Qing really pulls him over to his side, and they work together against you. Si Bao communicated with Gu Yenying in some worry. I know what I'm doing. Hee, big sis. All you need to do is use your beauty a little, and you'll be able to make North Moon change sides. You're underestimating him too much. Edan smiled at North Moon. What do you think of these women? Do any of them catch your eye? The women aren't bad, but the songs they sing are soft and weak. It makes me want to sleep. Oh, I didn't think you'd be proficient in music too. Then what kind of sound is strong? Don't tell me it's the roar of wild beasts. Si Qing smiled. The cultivators could not help but smile. Even an uncivilized demon was bold enough to criticize the music of humans. He was truly asking to be humiliated. Although Moon Devil was very strong, they still harbored the natural superiority of humans and only treated him as an extremely powerful wild beast. Chapter 633. On the square below the Soaring Clouds terrace, everyone stopped talking and raised their heads. This voice belongs to the Moon Devil. Afterwards, they looked at one another. They had no idea what had happened on the Soaring Clouds terrace. If a great battle had suddenly erupted on the Soaring Clouds terrace, it would have been easier for them to accept it. What was with him singing like this? Let's go just like that. You've got it. I've got it all. Hee, I've got it all. I've got it all. I've got it all. North Moon acted like no one else was around, striking the drum and singing. When he reached, I've got it all, I've got it all, he found it to be extremely fitting. In his past life, he did not think much of it, but now that he sang it, he felt like he was bursting with heroism and high spirits. Originally, he had purposefully come to make trouble for Si Qing's ceremony, but now he was in high spirits. With a shake of his clothes, he bared his upper body and struck the drum loudly. His scarlet hair blazed like fire. Although the crowd felt that this singing was completely out of tune, it was closer to the tune of a northern folk song. It had a kind of free and unrestrained passion that broke the shackles. It was not unpleasant to the ears. Even if they were not used to this rough singing, they could not help but be taken aback by the aura of his body. Surrounded by enemies, he sang to his heart's content. His enemies were all worried, afraid to act rashly. Above and below the terrace, the entire cultivation community of the Rui Commandery listened attentively. How delightful was that! When I see injustice, I roar. When I need to strike, I strike, charging through the 9 provinces in a flurry. When Li Qingshan sang the last word, there was a great thump, shattering the drum. He laughed aloud. Si Bao nudged Gu Yenying with her elbow. This guy sure is something else. Si Qing clenched his fists. This damned wretched demon. Li Qingshan tossed the drumsticks out the window. Bring some alcohol. I'll sing Nun Chaku for you again. Since you can't accept this song, I'll sing one that you can't accept even more. I don't care if you like it or if you like it. He had an urge to turn Si Qing's ceremony into a solo concert. Although the crowd didn't know what nunchucks were, they all knew that they couldn't let him continue singing. They all dissuaded him. Singing this song is already an eye-opener for us. There's no need to sing anymore. I think it's about time. We can announce the start of the ceremony. Si Qing also stood up, grabbed North Moon's wrist, and said in a low voice, I think it's enough. I'll announce the start of the celebration. Is that so? Since you said so, Qing, I'll perform for you next time. North Moon said, still not fully satisfied. He took the opportunity to hook his arm around Si Qing's shoulder, and they looked like good brothers. This place of yours sure is a nice place. It's much better than my dwelling. The beauties are all fair and tender too. Sai, you have no idea. Night roamers are all pitch black. Liobua, Liusu, don't blame me. I'm just lulling the enemy. Seeing how close North Moon was, Si Ching could not afford to be too cold. He cleared his throat. If you like it, you can always... I can order people to specially build a palace for you. Originally, he wanted to use the fine wine and delicacies of the Marquis estate to erode North Moon's willpower, but as soon as he thought about the consequences of North Moon staying behind, he changed his mind in a hurry. That'll be far too troublesome. Moreover, what's the point of me being alone? I'm willing to stay here and drink with you. Simon, let's go have a chat. Si Ching believed he was fearless of death, but when he heard that, his heart skipped a beat. He was very afraid that he would not be able to hold back his killing intent, which would make all of his previous efforts go to waste. He silently warned himself, Si Ching, you have to be patient. The most important aspect of hunting is patience. This prey sure is unexpectedly difficult to deal with. North Moon half pushed and half pulled Si Ching to the balcony that faced the square. Gu Yenying arrived beside the two of them, and the Golden Core cultivators all stood up and followed behind the three of them. By now, the clouds in the sky had already dispersed. The sunlight shone down at a slanted angle, extremely resplendent. Everyone raised their heads and gazed at the three strongest people in the Rui commandery. More accurately, they were a human, a demon, and a half-human, half-demon. Si Ching began his speech with his unique voice of a jackal. To his relief, North Moon did not interrupt him casually and embarrass him in front of so many people, or he really would have lost his temper. All he did was smile foolishly, wrapping his arm around his neck the entire time and sticking to him. Li Qingshan discovered that the speeches of the leaders of the world were all filled with cliches, expressing their gratitude for everyone's arrival. Afterwards, they would toss around idioms like working together, or working together like they were free. In the end, they would announce the official beginning of the ceremony. Banners hung down from the 9 soaring dragon ships. They were the congratulatory speeches from the various prefectures. This bearing won't do at all. North Moon shook his head in disdain. It's all their kind intentions. It obviously can't compare to our friendship. The corner of Si Ching's eye twitched. Everyone who came today has sent a congratulatory gift. Only a wretched demon, like you didn't send anything at all. You even gave one of mine to that Li Qingshan. Afterwards, there was a grand performance similar to the opening ceremony. The banquet was moved to the balcony, too. North Moon sat down with Si Ching without any hesitation. Si Ching forced a smile. You've come from afar. Go rest up. Get those beauties to serve you. I'm not tired. The performances here are quite interesting. Si Ching gritted his teeth. First up will be the competition between the schools of miscellany. I'll get someone to accompany you. Didn't I tell you already? I don't have 100 treasures pouch with me. That's easy. If there's anything you like, feel free to buy it first. North Moon was furious. Am I the kind of person who takes advantage of my friends? Then just treat it as me lending it to you. That's more like it. What about you? I'm staying here to watch over the place. Then forget it. I'll stay here to accompany you. Come, let's drink. You fucking evildoer. Can't you get the hell away from me? Si Ching roared in his heart. He helplessly raised his wine cup. That's fine, too. The grand celebration continued all the way until dusk. Just now it ended. Thousands of fireworks rose into the sky, exploding with a bang, transforming into thousands of different shapes and forms. They were far more colorful than the fireworks Li Qingshan had seen in his previous life. They complemented the sunset, creating a magnificent sight. This was naturally the work of the school of Moism. Li Qingshan and Han Qiongji stood side by side as they watched. Han Qiongji turned her head and watched as his face was reflected in a myriad of colors. It flickered between bright and dark, as if he had been smeared with colorful rouge and powder. Sometimes he looked a little comical, and other times he looked a little mysterious and even terrifying. Li Qingshan sensed her gaze. He turned his head and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing." Han Qiongji grabbed his hand. When the sunset completely disappeared from the west, the fireworks also became sparse. Si Qing stood up on the soaring cloud platform and loudly announced the official start of the exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures. According to the usual practice, the first to compete would be the School of Miscellany. Li Qingshan turned his head around and discovered that the 9 miscellaneous goods stores had already formed a circle at some point in time. Chapter 635. The competition between the schools of miscellany was extremely interesting. It was not a battle of martial arts, but a competition to see who could sell the most items and earn the most spiritual stones. Not only would the school that emerged victorious receive a tremendous reward, but they would also gain an advantage in the transactions between the various prefectures. As a result, whenever the exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures came, the schools of miscellany would take out their trump cards to sell, and the prices would often be extremely discounted. The cultivators of the various schools and sects temporarily broke through the barriers between sects and territories, surging into the various stores and buying what they needed. Everyone was beaming with joy. It was a very lively scene. Apart from the 9 stores of miscellaneous goods, many cultivators used this opportunity to set up stalls and sell their own items. Many mechanisms and structures rose up loudly, and restaurants and tea houses lined up one after another. The empty square turned into a huge market in the blink of an eye, brightly lit. Fireworks would illuminate the night sky from time to time. The air was filled with a festive atmosphere. Li Qingshan understood the intentions of the exhibition matches of the 9 prefectures a little. It was a grand gathering for the entire cultivation community of the Rui Commandery to take part. It focused on communication, not a battle to the death between the various prefectures and clans. Li Qingshan did not have anything in particular that he wanted to buy, while Han Qiongji mostly just enjoyed strolling around with him. The two of them strolled through the stores, leisurely pointing at something new and interesting from time to time as they discussed it. In the eyes of the bystanders, they were obviously a loving couple. Li Qingshan suddenly let out a sound of surprise. He discovered a painting scroll. It was covered in ink, but it did not resemble calligraphy or painting. However, a wild aura permeated the entire scroll. It was very familiar. It was the cursive sword calligraphy. The cursive sword calligraphy was only a mid-grade spiritual artifact. It had been placed in an inconspicuous corner, with no one paying any attention to it. This was not strange. When Qi practitioners chose spiritual artifacts, they would definitely choose spiritual artifacts of the 5 elements that corresponded with their element first. Only then would they be able to wield them as they pleased, and their power would multiply. The cursive sword calligraphy was powerful, but it consumed an extremely great amount of true qi. The profound sword style it hid could not be comprehended by just anyone. It was definitely not the best choice for cultivators. Han Qiongji said, "This seems to be a set with the scroll in your hand." "Not bad." Li Qingshan immediately called over the school of miscellany disciples and bought the cursive sword calligraphy. He was also interested. "Let's go take a look at the other shops." According to his guesses, although the original cursive sword calligraphy had been scattered in all directions after shattering, it was basically impossible for it to have dispersed too far away. It probably could not have made it out of the Rui Commandery. Furthermore, The remnant scrolls were not actually suitable for ordinary cultivators. Even if they obtained them by chance, they would not particularly cherish them. They would most likely be willing to exchange them for a suitable spiritual artifact. As time passed, it was not surprising that they would eventually gather in the grocery store. If he took this opportunity to look around, he might be able to find something. Han Qiongji was fine with it, but Li Qingshan couldn't find any traces of the cursive sword calligraphy after running through all 9 stores. He couldn't help but scratch his head. Did I make a mistake? Do you want me to help you think of something? Han Qiongji asked. The Han family's connections spanned across the entire Rui commandery. Li Qingshan shook his head. There's no need. I'm just satisfying my interest in collecting. Right now, the cursive sword calligraphy in his possession was only an inferior arcane artifact. Even if he obtained another 3 or 5 scrolls, he would only be able to upgrade it to low grade at most, and he would have to trouble Chu Danqing. The two of them left the grocery store and made their way through the bustling streets, gazing at the scenery on both sides. To Li Qingshan, this was a rare moment of peace. However, he could not help but think of Little and again. Most of the peaceful times in his life had been spent with Brother Ox first, followed by Little, and he could not help but hold Han Qiongji's hand. Although he was ambitious, he treasured every moment of peace, as well as every person who could bring him peace. Li Qingshan suddenly frowned and pulled Han Qiongji into a small alley on the side. Qingshan, what's wrong? Han Qiongji asked. It's nothing. It's just that someone is following us. Li Qingshan explained. Although he was the focus of everyone's gazes as he walked on the street, there was only one gaze that kept wandering to his left and right, following him from a distance that was neither too close nor too far away. He looked at the entrance of the alley and said, Fellow Taoist, don't be so sneaky. Come in and have a chat. Please don't misunderstand, Commander Li. I have no ill intentions. I just have some things that I want to discuss with you, but I haven't found the opportunity. Why don't I invite the two of you to the tea house next door for a drink? A gray-clothed Qi practitioner walked swiftly into the alley. He looked to be in his 30s, and his appearance was very ordinary. Add to that his cultivation was at the 9th layer of Qi refining, and he was the kind of person that would be hard to spot in a crowd. If you have something to say, then hurry up and say it. Just now, Commander, have you bought a scroll of calligraphy? Can you sell it to me? Also, according to what I know, Commander has a similar scroll in your possession. I am willing to pay a high price for it. Li Qingshan was rather surprised. Originally, he thought Si Qing was up to something again, but he never thought he had come for the cursive sword calligraphy. He took out the 2 scrolls of the cursive sword calligraphy and unfurled them with a swish. Are you talking about them? The gray-clothed man's eyes immediately lit up. His gaze moved back and forth between the 2 scrolls of the cursive sword calligraphy, as if he was verifying their authenticity. Yes. May I ask if the commander is interested in selling them? You're a Qi practitioner, but you sure talk big. This scroll is an arcane artifact. Can you afford it? Li Qingshan sank into his thoughts. As it seemed, his guess was not wrong. He was not the only one who collected the cursive sword calligraphy. I don't have any other hobbies in my life, but I have a special fondness for calligraphy. If I come across something I like, I'll buy it even if I have to bankrupt myself. You can say that I come from an aristocratic clan, so I do have some wealth. As long as the commander is willing to sell it, there's always a way. What's your surname? Han Qiongji studied this person in doubt. There were actually not a lot of prominent aristocratic clans in the Rui commandery, and they were all connected to one another. In the past, when Han Angua was a great general, the various aristocratic clans would send their descendants to congratulate him on every festival. Of course, Every single clan had many descendants, so it was impossible for her to recognize all of them. However, the aspect that left her doubtful the most was that this person's appearance was far too ordinary. He did not seem like a descendant of an aristocratic clan. My background is far too lowly. It's nowhere near as great as the Han family. Even if I tell you, you probably won't have heard of it, fellow Han. The cultivator in gray bowed slightly and played dumb before looking at Li Qingshan again. It's a pity that I don't want to sell it. Qiongji, let's go. Li Qingshan stowed the 2 scrolls of the cursive sword calligraphy away and called out to Han Qiongji before making his way out of the alleyway. Please wait, Commander. These 2 scrolls of calligraphy aren't of much use to you, so please feel free to name your price. The gray-clothed cultivator called out to Li Qingshan's back. Name your price? His tone was getting more and more arrogant. Li Qingshan's heart skipped a beat, but he did not stop walking. No matter what price you name, I won't sell it. Commander, you'll regret it in the future if you miss such a good opportunity. The gray-clothed cultivator was flustered and exasperated. These 2 scrolls of calligraphy were not as simple as a magic weapon and a spirit weapon to him. If he could not complete the mission, he would definitely be punished when he returned. Regret? Li Qingshan stopped in his tracks and suddenly turned back. He actually sensed a hint of threat in his words and found it rather unbelievable. A mere Qi practitioner dared to threaten him? The gray-clothed cultivator shuddered and took a few steps back. What are you trying to do? Even if we can't make a deal, we'll still be righteous. We won't regret it. If you want the calligraphy, go look elsewhere. Stop following us. Han Qiongji pulled Li Qingshan back to the main street. You've really changed quite a bit. People always say that a leopard cannot change its spots. Looks like that's not true after all, Li Qingshan said with a smile. In his memory, Han Qiongji was a young mistress with a fiery temper. Han Qiongji rolled her eyes. We're in the Marquis's manor now, so it's not convenient for me to act. I'm a White Wolf Guard, and I'm in charge of maintaining order. I'm not so narrow-minded that I'll yell and kill anyone who offends me in the slightest, Li Qingshan said with a smile. He glanced at the alleyway again, then held Han Qiongji's hand and blended into the crowd. Meanwhile, on the Soaring Clouds platform, Li Qingshan used his identity as the North Moon to tease Si Qing a few more times. Sensing that Si Qing's killing intent was growing stronger and stronger, he did not dare to continue, lest he really fell out with Si Qing. That would be counterproductive. Thus he casually said, I'm tired. Si Qing perked up, as if he had heard a royal decree. Butler Zheng, quickly send a Yu to his quarters to rest. North Moon tugged on Si Qing's sleeve. Let's go, a Qing. Let's continue drinking in his quarters. I still have to entertain my fellow Taoists. Another day, another day. Si Qing's expression stiffened, and he hurriedly waved his hand to refuse. All right then, I'll be leaving first. North Moon waved his hand and followed Butler Zheng to a luxurious palace. The eaves were arched, and the beams were richly ornamented. It was like an immortal's palace. Welcome, Lord North Moon. A group of women knelt down in front of the palace. They wore the same style of floor-length dresses, and every one of them was beautiful. Their makeup was different, and they were all 1 in 1,000 beauties. Their temperaments were also excellent, and they were definitely not ordinary beauties. Who are they? North Moon saw that every one of them had aura refining on them, although their cultivation levels were not very high, and most of them were only in the 2nd or 3rd layer of the aura refining realm. They were still cultivators, after all. Moreover, the woman in the lead had even opened up her sea of aura and reached the 6th layer of the aura refining realm. They're all maids in this palace, and they're here to serve you. Your luck with women is really enviable. Butler Zheng revealed a smile that all men understood. They're also cultivators. There's nowhere in the world that they can't go. So why do they have to do such a thing? North Moon was a little confused. If they had a cultivation level of the first or second layer of the aura refining realm, they could do whatever they wanted in the mortal world. Why would they become maids? None of them have the aptitude to cultivate. They were selected from young and given medicinal pills to barely be able to cultivate their aura refining realm. In reality, they're all just maids, and they're sold to the Marquis Manor. They can't be considered real cultivators. I see. North Moon nodded. This Jiang Fu really had too much money to burn. To do such a boring thing, aristocrats were really extravagant. Chapter 636. Even if mortal women were born beautiful, if they didn't cultivate, then they would have many flaws, and their beauty would quickly age. Moreover, the cultivation techniques that these women cultivated were specially arranged by the Marquis estate. They only sought to maintain their beauty, improve their bearing and charm, and add some methods to serve men. However, this wasn't like what Li Qingshan thought. It wasn't for the sake of satisfying a moment's lust. It was for the sake of producing offspring. The children of cultivators and cultivators would basically possess natural talent in cultivation. So, for the sake of ensuring the bloodline of the clan, the great aristocratic families would prepare such a reserve. The concubines that the Han clan arranged for Han Tie were mostly women like this. Moreover, this was an opportunity for these women to change their fates, becoming a cultivator. Even if it was a cultivator of the lowest level, would allow them to possess a healthier physique than mortals, a longer lifespan, more beautiful appearance, and enjoy a life of luxury that mortals were unable to imagine. Once they were able to give birth to a child with natural talent, their entire lives would be guaranteed. Steward Zheng first brought North Moon to tour around the palace. The decorations within the palace were extremely luxurious, and all sorts of facilities were available. There was even a wine cellar that stored a few hundred jars of fine wine. Then they arrived at the rear hall, and they saw white smoke rising into the air. It was actually an open-air hot spring, and the walls of the spring were made from warm white jade. Moreover, the surrounding walls were painted with alluring murals of beautiful women. The women in the murals wore revealing clothes, had graceful postures, and frequently cast flirtatious glances at each other. Amidst the rising mist, it was dreamlike and illusory as if they were alive, and it was naturally the work of an artist. Moreover, those maidservants arrived at the side of the spring, making the dream become reality. Steward Zheng smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist North Moon, this is all His Highness' kind intentions. Please enjoy it, fellow Taoist North Moon. I'll be taking my leave first." North Moon smiled lightly. He removed his clothes and leaped into the spring, and then he immediately sat down cross-legged and entered into a meditative state. This caused those women to look at each other, and they didn't know what to do. When Si Qing heard Steward Zheng's report, he slammed the table heavily, and then he let out a long sigh. This monster was able to rise in such a short period of time. As expected, it isn't something that can be shaken by wine and beauty. Dripping water wears through a stone, and a rope saws through a tree. "We can't be impatient," said Jia Zhun as he waved his fan. "Not in a hurry. I think he's clearly using his doppelganger to toy with me today. Do I have to endure him forever?" But it's not as if he's not showing his goodwill and probing. As time passes, we will eventually let down our guard. Right now, the most important thing is to refine the Azura field. Yes, as long as I refined the Azura field and find out where his main body is, let's see if he can still escape from me. Si Qing spread his fingers and clenched them tightly. Actually, Si Qing had overestimated the thoughts of North Moon, or rather, Li Qingshan. He wasn't someone who was infatuated with love, and he would drink whatever was given to him most of the time without holding back. If it was on a normal day, he would naturally accept all of this filial piety. But now that Han Qiongji was by his side, he would feel bad if he used his doppelganger to steal her. The competition between the schools of miscellany would continue for a few more days. Some cultivators were still tirelessly searching for the things they wanted, while others had already returned to their accommodations. With the vastness of the Marquis estate, accommodating these cultivators was not a problem at all. As the night deepened, the two of them fell asleep in each other's arms. Li Qingshan opened his eyes and slowly pulled his arm away from Han Qiongji's body. He knew that this kind of movement could not be hidden from the person next to him, so he leaned down and kissed her gently on the cheek. He said softly, "I'll be back very soon." Then Li Qingshan withdrew his aura and hid his figure, merging into the night. Han Qiongji opened her eyes and resisted the urge to follow and take a look. "Qingshan, just what is your secret?" Li Qingshan wrinkled his nose. Among the many complicated auras, he found the one he wanted. It was the aura of the gray-clothed cultivator who wanted to buy his cursive sword calligraphy. Then he followed an invisible trail and chased after it. It was not that he was so narrow-minded that he would hold a grudge and want to take revenge after being slightly offended. Instead, he recalled a small matter from a few years ago from today. It happened below the Green Vine Mountain, and it was also for the sake of the cursive sword calligraphy. He was hunted down by a masked man in black who wanted to kill him. Was there some sort of connection between the two? Many guards of the Marquis estate and the Hawkwolf Guard patrolled the surroundings, not sparing a single corner. There were also many warning formations operating secretly, maintaining a tight security on the inside. Li Qingshan moved through the buildings like there was no one around. As a signature technique among water element techniques, the invisibility technique was extremely effective when used by Li Qingshan with his current cultivation and talent. Even without external items like the glazed mirror of invisibility or the illusory water sword of invisibility, he could still fool regular foundation establishment cultivators. With the senses of the spirit turtle, avoiding these warning formations was not a problem at all. He arrived before a tall building, and the smell vanished into a room on the 5th floor. Li Qingshan arrived silently and listened carefully, but he heard nothing at all. He could not sense any aura either. Clearly, there had been a formation cast down to block out probing. Li Qingshan pursed his lips and mobilized his soul sense, condensing it into a single point and silently penetrating the formation. Like piercing through the paper window with a needle, he could clearly hear the voices of people. And it was not just a single person. This seemed simple, but it required an extremely powerful soul sense. He practiced the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, the 4 powerful wills that belong to the ox demon, tiger demon, spirit turtle, and phoenix filled his sea of consciousness, constantly clashing with one another. Water and fire, god and demon, had refined his soul sense to an extremely powerful level. Even regular golden core cultivators paled in comparison. There were a total of 7 people in the room, apart from 1 foundation establishment cultivator. The others were all Qi practitioners. Their attires were very ordinary, making it impossible to tell which sect they belonged to. It was as if they were purposefully keeping a low profile. The cultivator in gray knelt on the ground and begged the foundation establishment cultivator. "Sir," he turned me down flatly. "There's nothing I can do." "Humph, Li Qingshan, you really are as arrogant as the rumors say. You really refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The foundation establishment cultivator was a stern old man. He swung his sleeve viciously. Li Qingshan thought, "Why don't you take a look in the mirror and see what you're made of? You're already so old, yet you're only at mid-foundation establishment, let alone golden core. You don't even have much hope in reaching late foundation establishment. Though, just what is this bastard relying on to make him so confident?" The stern old man paced around with his hands behind his back. Niu Juxia seems to have vanished into thin air. He's nowhere to be found anymore. Even the whereabouts of the 2-3 absolutes calligraphy are unknown. Li Qingshan must obtain those 2 scrolls in order to answer to that lord. You didn't complete your mission, so your punishment is unavoidable. Li Qingshan's heart shook. These guys were indeed connected. They seemed to be working for an even more powerful person, and were collecting the 3 absolutes calligraphy, which was also the so-called cursive sword calligraphy. That person was not only rich, but he was probably not weak either. This was why these guys were so arrogant, because they relied on their master's power. The 3 absolutes calligraphy had been split into countless pieces. It was not something that Qi practitioners could collect at all. Even foundation establishment cultivators probably did not have it. That lord might be one of the golden core cultivators he had met on the flying cloud platform today. However, he felt a little strange. It was just collecting a few spirit artifacts. Why was there a need to be so sneaky? Yes, they were probably afraid that if the price was raised, it would be harder to get them. Fear appeared on the cultivator in Gray's face. "Wait, sir. I discovered something strange today." "What is it?" "On Li Qingshan's artifact, the 3 absolutes calligraphy, I feel that some of the strokes on it are very familiar. It's extremely similar to the scroll that junior brother Lu, who was killed by Niu Juxia, lost. Are you sure?" The stern-faced old man's expression turned solemn, although to outsiders, every 3 absolutes calligraphy looked the same, and they were all written vertically and horizontally. There were actually many differences between each scroll. They had been doing this for a long time, so they could distinguish between them. A Qi practitioner at the side also said, "Speaking of which, this is indeed strange. The remnant scrolls of the 3 absolutes calligraphy are basically spirit artifacts. Why would an artifact appear out of nowhere? Could it be that this Niu Juxia is related to Li Qingshan in some way?" The stern-faced old man pondered for a moment. "I'll report this to that lord and ask him to take action personally. I don't believe that we can't take care of a mere Li Qingshan." A sinister smile appeared on his face. "Since you're not willing to let us do as we wish, don't blame us for cutting off your path of survival as a genius." The other Qi practitioners also laughed. They were all itinerant cultivators and did not have much talent. No sect was willing to accept them, so they were gathered to work for the old man. They were instinctively jealous and disgusted of geniuses. Then come. A voice suddenly sounded in their ears at the same time. The door suddenly opened and then immediately closed, but there was no one in sight. There was only a slight breeze that swept through the room, as if the door had been blown open by this breeze. The stern-faced old man's hair stood on end as he felt a great life-threatening crisis. He retreated and was about to activate the defensive artifact on his body when he realized that he was still in the same place. Then he rapidly fell down. He widened his eyes in disbelief, and only then did he feel the sharp pain from his neck. He did not know when his neck had been neatly severed. His body took a few steps back, but his head was left in midair. Looking at the other Qi practitioners, they were all frozen in place. Some even had blank expressions on their faces, not knowing what had happened. Li Qingshan used one of his innate abilities, the Tiger Demon's Breath, against a foundation establishment cultivator and a group of Qi practitioners. He did not need to go through much trouble. He only needed to blow. After all, this was the Marquis's mansion. If he caused too much of a commotion and gave Si Ching and the others something to use against him, it would not be good. Thus, he directly killed them in one move. Before the head fell to the ground, it was wrapped up by a gust of wind and sent into Li Qingshan's 100 treasures pouch along with the corpse. After confirming that there was no trace of the smell of blood, Li Qingshan put away the 700 treasures pouches and quietly left the room. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.